Stavatti's been a ghost ship, 20 years of empty claims, with hangars full of garbage and dreams that never came. Now he's fishing for new suckers to store more junk inside, while promising his gullible fans hover cars and free energy rides.
We are working on anti-gravity. As soon as we get financed, which again is coming very soon.
Divine insights were handed down, but now they cost a fee. In the wacky world of Wilcock, that's the way it's gotta be. Financial resets, debts erased, a world so fair and bright. The alliance never came, and neither did his wife. The wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. Just buy my course, $300. Enlightenment's the deal. In the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. Extraterrestrial pals, they're coming here to stay. Disclosure's always just around, but aliens delay. Law of one, the Bible, Bhagavad Gita, all mixed up in one. David's stealing from the best, but his fans think it's a brand new one. Plagiarizing profit, that's his favorite routine. In the wacky world of Wilcock, where nonsense reigns supreme, we'll all get rainbow bodies, whatever that might mean. And Jesus is an alien, the wildest thing you've seen. David's on a hero's journey through dimensions far and wide. Draco reptilians know where he lives, so in his mansion he must hide. Catastrophes and end times, we're on the brink, he said. But my coffee's brewing nicely, and I'm still in my bed. The wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. Just buy my course, $300. Enlightenment's the deal. In the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. No one's suffering like David in his mansion grand and tall. With eyes and steak and chicken, he's the loneliest of all. His teeth are fake as his prophecies, and courses that he sells. In the wacky world of Wilcock, he's ringing all the bells.
If we bathe in our own urine, we can gain superpowers. Doing the bath does help. You urinate before you get into the bathtub, and then you drink new water out of a glass, and when you're in the bathtub, you can do a little more.
Buy my course, $300. Enlightenment's the deal. In the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. His PowerPoint slides are packed with schizophrenic rants, forced to stream on YouTube now, bankruptcy's a stance. Stavatti Aerospace, a Ponzi scheme they say. So pay pigs better pay up, or like Corey Good he'll stay. So many dates, so many dreams, none of them come true. But hey, don't fret, just buy the course and I'll enlighten you.
For God's sake, take the deal, okay? But you have to take the deal and you have to cooperate. Rise, rise, rise. And you feel yourself, kinetic energy of levitation, tingling across your skin.
In 2012, we'd all ascend, a cosmic ship was due. But here we are in 24, and nothing much is new. Mass arrests and cover busts, beliefs should quake in fear, yet they're still here, sipping wine. And we're all stuck right here, in a world of Greer and Good, Crush and Lou. With their claims, nobody tops David Wilcock, with his fringe and wacky games, while they're sharing UFOs and theories kinda tame. David's got aliens who wanna sleep with him and eat him, what a shame. He's the master of the bizarre, with rainbow bodies on display. In the wacky world of Wilcock, where nonsense leads the way. So here's to Dave, the shyster bold, with tales so far-fetched and grand. In his world of make-believe, where fantasy's second-hand, he spins his fairy tales and lies between his YouTube streams for his cat crystal ladies who gobble up his dreams.
Attention, please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. We are back again looking into the wacky world of Wilcock, despite David Wilcock's threatening to have me arrested if I keep making these videos and sue me and whatever else. Claims that I got him swatted, which were all completely and totally false. We're here today because David Wilcock, for years now, has been making a multitude of claims about this shady Stavatti Aerospace. And some time ago, we had an incredible guest here who's a researcher and author, John Christian Spadavecchia. And this guest is awesome and was able to dig into all the court documents, into the company's history, the company's finances. He's spoken with sort of whistleblowers or former employees, board members, or people associated with Stavatti Aerospace, and has been instrumental in peeling back the layers of deception that David Wilcock uses to sell his fairy tales. In the past 2 years, David Wilcock has claimed that they were retrofitting MiG 29s, that they were developing anti gravity technology, free energy technology, the fastest jet ever produced, that, by the way, could also fly in space. And lately, he's saying that they're developing electric vehicles and battery technology that blows Elon Musk's batteries away somehow. All of these things, in my opinion, are fairy tales and false. David Wilcock has also claimed at various times that he was getting all of these deals, all of this money's coming in. He's literally telling people that they're getting billions of dollars invested, that these different people, first it was millions. Now he's up to saying that $5 billion, an investor's going to invest $5 billion. But we know from the excellent work of our guest tonight that this company was sued by a previous investor who called this company in the court documents a, quote, Ponzi scheme and investment scam. So my question is always, who's putting $5 billion into a company that's never produced a single product or service in their 20 or 30-year history, who is also already being sued by a bunch of creditors, who's also being sued by former investors? Who's putting $5 billion into a company like that? Well, according to David Wilcock, there's plenty of investors. They're lining up at the door, and the money's going to be here by next Tuesday. I don't believe that, and neither should you. And by the way, just want to put this on the Yeah, 1 second. Uh, 1 second. All right, that should do it. Can you hear me now, John? Yeah, I apologize if there was audio issues at the beginning. I have a USB nightmare below me, and all of these cameras all have a microphone, and occasionally this thing gets very confused. So I apologize for any audio difficulties at the beginning of tonight's broadcast. Here's what I was saying, that the purpose of tonight's broadcast, John, is not to disparage or harass, threaten, intimidate anybody. It's to peel back these layers of deception and show people the truth about all of these incredible claims that David Wilcock is making.
Well, once again, it's a privilege to be here on Truth Seekers. And you're right, we don't want to disparage or be unfair to anyone, and we want to be reasonable. And we want to hunt and do fact finding, and we want to get down to the bottom of what's really going on here with Stavatti Aerospace.
Yeah, now you've been looking into Stavatti for quite some time, and in a previous appearance here, you showed us that they're being sued by a bunch of creditors, they're being sued by former investors, and it's really like a facade of a real company, because besides this airplane hangar, which apparently they're only renting to a garbage dumpster company, they have no income. They've never produced a single product or service, despite all of Wilcock's various bragging claims of all these incredible things they're going to do. And you just keep finding more stuff, right? Like more and more proof that they're not what they claim they are.
That's correct. Unfortunately, when I decided to go down the Stavatti rabbit hole, I didn't know what kind of warren of rabbits I was going to find down here. And there has been no shortage of rabbit holes or lines of inquiry to look on, which, raise all kinds of questions, which look suspicious, or which just don't add up or pass a smell test. And I guess it's a good time to, we're here on the last day of October. It's been a few months.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah, happy Halloween. By the way, folks, if I sound a bit frazzled, it's because I spent the first half of the week with a wildfire 8 miles from my house. So
it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know it doesn't matter if David Wilcock or Stavatti or the deep state. It doesn't matter how many Mountain Dew laser satellites they activate. I'm not going to stop my Stavatti research.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe David Wilcock called in the Jewish space lasers to burn down your house, but he was off by 8 miles.
Yeah, they can activate all the Mountain Dew or Cherry Coke lasers they want. It's not going to make a difference. But hey, let's take a rundown of where we are.
Before we do, John, I thought it would be interesting if we simply start with all of the promises. Right? All the various promises that David Wilcock has made. Here is the latest. 1 second. I have this from Macario. He shared this post. Oh, no, that's the arrests coming soon update. I'm talking about this. 1 second. I have this video here, which I will share on my screen in a moment. But before I do, I want to cite fair use. This is a transformative work. We're educating the public, and we'll be critiquing the video, talking about it with our live chat. This is certainly covered under fair use and is allowable by law. This is David Wilcock. This is quite a collection, Mr. Spadavecchia, of David Wilcock claiming that the Stavatti is getting financed or getting loans or getting big deals. And what we see is that since September 12th of 2021, David Wilcock has been making these fantastic claims about Stavatti. I forgot. Here, let me actually share it. So friends, since September of 2021, meaning 3 years now, David Wilcock has been making these fantastic claims, and none of them have come to fruition. But let's listen. 1 second. Did I share the wrong one? I shared the wrong one. Hold on 1 second. And I apologize, friends. We have some new software, so we have quite a quite a lot to learn to prevent these technical problems from happening. I'll try it again here. So this is the video of a compilation of David Wilcock making these promises that big things are happening, but they never seem to come along, John. Like it's like an endless parade of broken promises about big things happening at Stavatti. Here we go.
Our company is still, getting financed right now, but we just got some, actually, thank God. We are waiting on money coming in.
October
as soon as we get the money,
2021?
which is supposed to be Monday or Tuesday. We're immediately going to do a MiG-29 upgrade and then bring it up to our facility.
You have some information
Now
about
the company
that,
looks
right?
like it's going to be
We will
okay.
talk about MiGs
We
tonight.
still don't
We're
know if
definitely
our
gonna talk
company's going
about
to be
MiGs.
financed by the time the
October
show starts next
2021.
week.
Company's definitely
And
going to be
Stavatti
financed
is doing
by next
great.
week.
We've got money coming in. Looks like it's going to be happening. I don't know quite how soon, but hopefully within the month of March. Hopefully the hover car company is going to fund this coming week.
This week,
There's
John.
maybe a few deals that might happen, but every single deal we've ever tried to do has not worked. So we've had 20, 30, 40 different deals that we got really close to the front line. Stavatti, our
Big deals.
aerospace company, it looks like we're getting some deals
October
coming in.
2023.
There's actually about 4 or
Next
5
year.
that are really amazing.
Big deals.
Yeah, so we've had some really great things happen with the company. I'm not worried anymore. There's some loans that have lined up at different levels
This
of
is
size.
November.
The DS keeps hammering us down. We haven't been able to close on a deal yet. And so, the financial thing is still a big deal, a big problem for us. I'm not even worried anymore. I mean, we might have a deal by
not
Monday or
worried,
Tuesday.
John.
And as I hopefully get my company financed, it looks very good now. We have 3 deals that are extremely close. So I would imagine by the end of May that I will be
We
capitalized.
talk about kick the
And
can,
I hope
John.
we get a deal really soon so we can get on with making free energy and anti-gravity. That would be really nice. We're lining up investors. We haven't got them yet. And like with the Tuesday, Friday game, I mean, you have dinner with these guys. They tell you that you're going to make all this money. They get you to invest, which is usually what it's about, and then the money is coming and it's always Tuesday or Friday. We might have a deal tomorrow.
June.
We are now
Ooh,
that close.
tomorrow,
We're
John.
looking at somewhere between 22 to 24 million. We are about to get funding though, and there's a couple other sources that popped in this week, both of which could be, around or over 100 million. So you'll be able to live without money. If you want to go be an artist, you can do that. That's what my company's working
June
towards.
2024.
That's why it's so amazing we're finally getting funded. Getting lots of followers, making money, who's actually taken their money and invested it directly into something like this. As far as I know, I'm the only one where I've actually made these tangible steps. We have a real military facility. We've been keeping it
man.
alive. Now we're finally going to get funded after all this time.
This is a comedian.
But we are closing on our loan. We're expecting to have it come in very soon.
June 30th.
We're supposed to get our loan on
Technically, it's not a
now
parody.
it's supposed to be
Technically, it's
Wednesday
real thing.
because one of the groups had 3 days off for July 4th. That's fine. That our company is going to get off the ground, which is now happening. We have 3 different loans coming in. We actually have 3 different purchase orders coming in. So we're really close now to getting
You got some
financed
information on previous purchases.
because we are about to get funded. But until we do, it's a
do
nail
I.
biter. We're waiting on our
July
company to get
28th.
funded. We've had a lot of DS interference.
It's
But
the
now
deep
things are
state's
finally
fault.
coming
They're
together,
not getting any
and it
money,
looks like
John.
we're very close to both purchase orders and investors coming together. We did have an investor who kept telling us the money is coming. It turned into a Tuesday, Friday game. It was very frustrating. So I was believing her, and I told you guys, oh yeah, we're about to get funded by so-and-so date. Well, all those dates have come and gone. But she actually finally found us a new guy we spoke to on, I think it was Thursday after our board meeting.
Oh, so
We
they should
spoke
be
to
funded
another
by now,
person, to a
then,
different
right?
member of our company on
This is
Friday.
July 28th.
And these guys are the real deal. So we're now looking at a short-term bridge loan, somewhere between maybe 5 to 15 M. I'm only doing this till we get
15
funded,
million, huh?
which might be later this week. My company probably is going to get financed this week. We've got some great things going on. And once we get funded, which is hopefully going to be on Friday, so Chris comes in, tells me about Dr. Timothy, and shows me, he emails it to me sitting at my kitchen table, a signed agreement
He's
that
got
the
a signed
agreement
deal,
says is
John.
irrevocable.
That's
That
in
Dr.
August.
Timothy is going
We
to
should have
fund
the
us
money
for
by now.
$500 million.
$500 million.
But we're probably going to get the first
What kind of
27
deal?
this coming week. Dr. Timothy just wants it to go directly to us. So yeah, we're going to get the company funded. We have a very, very large group coming in that might even go up to 5B. We don't know exactly what they're going to
$5
do
billion,
yet.
John.
It's somewhere between 500M and 5B. And they're going to give us a term sheet in 2 weeks as of last Thursday.
Just say billion.
So it's like
Just
September
say billion.
6th.
Why not?
Yeah, $5 billion.
You know, I've had to help Stavatti out again because we have one deal is supposed to hit on Tuesday. We have another deal that could be very, very large.
Poor
It's supposed
David,
to hit
they're
on
sucking all this
September
money out of him
15th.
because nobody else is giving them any.
And that's the whole investment group.
Oh, now he's got a whole
And they
group
are the
of
ones that are,
investors.
potentially going to go up to $5 billion.
Wow.
Let's hope that happens. That would be
$5
great for
billion.
us.
Yeah.
Stavatti, our aerospace company, is very close to getting funded, but it's not there yet.
There's September 15th.
And until we really have the money, we're in super big trouble. So we have like a $5,200 insurance payment, or we're going to lose our insurance. It's coming in on Monday.
Oh, I bet
I might have to cover that one because, again, I'm like the only person in the board who can usually cover these expenses.
Well, I mean, when you're giving them $1 million,
But we're very close to getting funded, and we have 2 deals that are both very imminent.
Second, 2 deals are
And
imminent.
one of them could potentially, we don't know exactly what they want to do, but it might go up to $5 billion.
So again,
Can we
$5
get
billion.
an update on the funding? Yes.
This is October 13th.
There's been some staggeringly wonderful updates on our funding.
Another update.
And I don't
just
know how
watched
much I
20
want to go
updates.
into right now,
None of them happened, John.
but it looks like, well, maybe I'll just say it. Our first order looks like it's going to be very large. The first product order that we get for a
That'll be the
jet
first
upgrade
product
program
ever,
is
John.
going to be very large. It's ballooned by 800% from where it was going to be before.
Did he say MiG-29?
So that's a very exciting
Yes,
thing
he
for
did.
us.
Oh,
It
God.
means that we're going
You
to
got some
start with a
information
bang.
to share on that. I
And
know.
Oh,
our
boy, do
CEO,
I.
Chris, is actually leaving,
Yeah, he's getting
on
MiG-29
a
deals,
trip
friends. Where do you see the
overseas,
truth behind that?
which almost certainly will lead to him closing on deals and getting money in our account. I have every confidence that he's going to come back with money on this trip. So we're not going to have board meetings for 2 weeks. He's going to be on the road. He's stopping off in several
Money's
places.
definitely coming, John.
And we're going to resolve this
3
once
years
and
of
for
the
all.
money's
So I'm not
definitely
freaking
coming.
broke anymore, and I can pay my debts, and that will be so awesome. And I do still need your help. We're probably going to close on some really big stuff
He's desperate. He
as
needs
a result of
everybody's
this
help.
trip that he's making. But like the electric vehicle
20th.
people now say they want to come in November and
Oh,
inspect
now
the
they're making
facility
electric
before we get the
vehicles
larger
now.
amounts of money. So we're probably only going to
With
get
better
initial
batteries
funds
than
at the
Elon Musk
beginning and
has.
then larger amounts later. But we also have a gigantic deal that could hit any time. I'm waiting to hear on that. And once that does, then I never have to worry about money again. His name is Chris. He was overseas and he bagged, the big meeting was on Friday. And in that meeting, he bagged the
Big
deal that he was
deals are
supposed to
coming.
bag. And I don't even know
John,
all the
this is
details yet,
10-20.
He bagged them.
but
He bagged
it's a very significant contract.
It's a very significant contract. So what we can clearly establish through this evidence of his past claims, John, is that he's been saying for 3 years that the company's getting financed. He's also been saying that he's the only one paying some of the business's expenses, right? And he's the only one on the board that is putting any money towards these things. Do you have a sense, after all these people that you've spoken to, of just how much money David Wilcock has put into the shady company that's never produced a single airplane or product or service?
So briefly, I have a bit more of it than just a sense. I've actually done a rough calculation based off of,
Great. How much money did they rob David Wilcock
Listen.
for, allegedly?
But before I give the number, let me just simply say this. About 20 years ago, I knew a couple of folks that fell for one of those Nigerian prince scams to the tune of maybe $20,000 to $25,000. Now that's a lot of money to lose in a scam or a con. But 20, 25 grand, that's not going to destroy most people. Most people can recover from a sum like that.
Yeah, a year or
I-
two, maybe. Yeah.
When we calculate what David Wilcock has contributed to Stavatti, I have calculated it at around $1.5 million.
Wow, really?
That's correct. And I have to say, my calculation is conservative. There is a possibility that David Wilcock has actually given more than that, that my number may be inaccurate. It's possible
because
that
it doesn't
more
make
than
any
that.
sense. Like he basically gave them the money to buy this hangar, and he's claimed that. But that doesn't make any sense because from a business perspective, wouldn't you think, okay, if we're going to buy this building or this complex for $1 million, there's going to be some annual expenses as well, right? Like you
So,
need money for that. And apparently they bought this building and they don't have money for any of the expenses for the building.
well, a couple things that have come up in my research regarding that. When David Wilcock joined the company, Stavatti didn't have any real property. They didn't lease any property. They didn't own any property.
Yeah, they
When
were just a
David,
website.
yeah,
20 years,
a
they were just a
website and
website with brag
yeah,
claims.
a website and some corporate filings and some designs and a Twitter account. When David Wilcock joined in 2019, approximately April of 2019 is what we think. We don't know for certain. And when David Wilcock joined, and when David Wilcock's money joined the company, it seems like there was a turn in the tide or a change in the winds, and they decided to go out and acquire a piece of property. Now, I have a source that has told me that when David Wilcock and Chris Beskar acquired this hangar, it wasn't for free energy or hover cars or med beds. They bought it because they wanted to turn it into a movie studio.
Really, that's interesting.
That is
But
what a source has told me.
yeah, so they're buying it to build a movie studio so that David Wilcock can make stupid movies, probably.
Yeah. At some point, they decided that they weren't going to go down the movie studio route, and they decided that they would attempt to use it for aerospace purposes, quote unquote.
Wow, that's wild. And you know as well as I do, they've never produced any product or service. And there's even court documents where they admit they've never produced any products or services in the aviation industry.
Yeah, I know
And their
that.
only income is from the garbage dumpster company that's renting space to store garbage dumpsters, right?
Yeah, obviously we have court filings that Stavatti's never produced an aircraft. All of the sources that I've talked to have confirmed that. They've never had any employees. They've never they've never had any payroll. It appears that they're only
What about all
legitimate.
those jobs, John? They were supposed to produce 500 jobs, right? Or something like that.
Well, and that's a point of contention with the NCIDA and their modeling software when they did this Stavatti pilot project. They used a modeling software to predict, based on Stavatti's plan and all the parameters surrounding it, to get a projection of how many jobs it would bring to the area. And I think it was like 300 to 400. I'd have to go back and look at the
And
numbers.
they haven't produced a single job yet, right?
Yes, the actual number produced to date is 0.
Wow. So, and let's get into the Big 29 because at various times, David Wilcock and Stavatti have claimed that they were going to buy these MiG 29s and then they were going to retrofit them or upgrade them or something with more modern technology and then resell them. Is that your understanding? It's mine.
That is correct. The Dimitrov lawsuit, it's a point of contention in the Dimitrov lawsuit exactly what Dimitrov's money was for. The first thing that Stavatti said it was for in Chris Beskar's demand letter response to Dimitrov, October of 2 years ago, was that Dimitrov's money was just a loan for general expenses. So it was more or less at Stavatti's discretion at what they could spend.
And that was $1 million loan and they promised to pay back $5 million, right?
Along that, yeah, it was 1 million principal and then a $5 million profit participation. So basically 5 million in interest. So he should have gotten paid back 6 million, I believe is the number. So I put a link in chat for the Dimitrov lawsuit. It's a federal lawsuit. When the lawsuit was filed, I took the effort on myself to upload all the PDFs to Recap, which is the free version of Pacer. So anyone can click on that link and basically get every single PDF docket entry in Dimitrov versus Stavatti. All the PDFs are there for free. And if we're going to talk about the MiG-29s, we really ought to look at the PPM that is in this case. But again, so the first allegation per Chris Beskar was that Dimitrov's money was for general expenses. The second allegation, when Dimitrov actually filed the lawsuit, and then Stavatti, of course, went into default and then had to get the default removed. When they finally got the default removed and they answered the complaint, the initial complaint in the lawsuit, Chris Beskar changed his story. And he claims that Dimitrov's money was actually for the MiG-29 upgrade program called the Super Fulcrum.
Okay,
And
and you dug a little bit into that and even found perhaps the people they claimed that they were buying these MiG-29s from?
yeah, I'm going to get on that in a moment, but I have to say, after Chris Beskar changed his story, as you may or may not know, some of the other parties in the case were claimed to be like subversives, and so Stavatti's representation didn't represent them. And one of those individuals is Brian Colvin. When Brian Colvin finally did acquire his own attorney and was able to answer his own answer to Dimitrov's lawsuit alongside Beskar's, Brian Colvin claims that Dimitrov's money was for the hover car.
So we've got three different explanations for what they were going to do with that $1 million of money that was contributed by an investor who expected to get like 4 million back, right?
That's correct.
One explanation was this is for operating expenses. The next explanation was, oh, this is for the MiG-29 upgrade project. And the third explanation, oh, we're going to spend it on building hover cars.
That's
And
correct.
interestingly, I mean, I guess an argument could be made for the operating expenses, but they've never completed this MiG-29 upgrade thing, right? And
So,
they,
yeah.
they certainly haven't shown us any hover cars other than plastic toys made on a 3D printer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those. Hold on, I'm putting another link in chat for the document we're going to look at here. All right, so I've put the link in chat here. So anyone can go to this link and take a look at the PPM that Dimitrov
Can you
attached
put that
as
through Twitter? I don't see it in the private chat here.
I
Or
will
are you
do that
putting it in
now.
the YouTube chat?
Yeah, so everyone can follow along. Yeah.
Oh, sure, great. I'll go over there and get it to share
Yeah,
the screen.
bring that PDF up and then we can take a look. But as we're doing that, um, so of the three allegations, obviously general expenses, the MiG-29 upgrade, and the hover car. Um, of those three, the MiG-29 really seems like on the balance of probability, like that might be what the money was for. And the reason I say that is because of this document that Stephen is going to bring up on the screen here momentarily.
You said you put
So
it in the YouTube live chat? Oh, wait, I'm
yeah,
looking at top chat. Let me look at the whole live chat, see if I can't find that.
I just sent it to you in Twitter as well in case.
Okay, that's probably
yeah.
better. I'll get it
Yeah.
up from there.
So
Exhibit C, yes.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and I'll share my screen so that people can follow along a little better. Just hold on though, because when I do this, I'm going to have to throw us out and put us back in. I think 1 second. Yes, here we go. But 1 second here so we can get it bigger. All right, I have the document here, and this is Exhibit C.
Right. Now, a lot of this is just boilerplate PPM language. We can go ahead and skip to page. And we can go ahead and skip to page 13. Go to page 13. So use of proceeds. So basically, this is the part of the PPM given to investors that describes, how they plan to use the money. And essentially what Stavatti is proposing here is they're proposing to buy 4 MiG-29s from a company called Air USA, who is owned by a guy named Don Curlin. I should say was owned because the company no longer exists. I'll touch on that in a moment. So
Okay.
this company Air USA, this guy Don Curlin, he not only owns 4 MiG-29s, he owns a bunch of helicopters, a bunch of other jets, and his whole business model was doing war games with the military, like Russian quote-unquote Red Skies war games and simulations and things of that nature. His MiG-29s were maintained. He actually employed a guy, according to public articles about Air USA, Don actually had to hire a guy in Russia whose sole job was to find parts for these MiG-29s. Because MiG-29 is a Russian aircraft, and no company or organization in the United States makes parts for it, obviously. So he had to
it's difficult to maintain if you're not in Russia, right?
Correct, yeah. That's absolutely correct. So Don Curlin had 4 of these. Now, at some point, I guess Stavatti approached him, and I'll talk about this more in a moment. But Stavatti approached him and I guess wanted to buy the whole company. and it never came to fruition. I know this because I actually spoke with Don. More on that in a moment. But that was the plan, right? Stavatti was going to upgrade these 4 planes, and then once Stavatti was able to build or retrofit these 4 aircraft, that the next part of the plan, and it reads that, it says that in here. The next part of the plan was they were actually going to buy the whole company from Don. So they were going to buy his aircraft, upgrade them, and then if everything went swimmingly, they were going to buy the whole company.
And let me guess, that didn't happen.
So what actually happened is that Don...
And you've talked to this Don Curlin, right?
I talked to him, that's correct. So what actually happened was Don wound up selling his operation to a company called Raven Aerospace, RAVN. Now, when Don sold them the company, he gave them basically everything except 2 of his MiG-29s. The other 2 MiG-29s are no longer airworthy. According to Don, they will never fly again. They're only boneyards for parts at this point. So Raven took over those 2 MiG-29s that are no longer airworthy.
So wait, what you're saying is they couldn't have bought 4 from this company?
Right. Well, we're getting there. So Raven took over the 2 MiG-29s, and Stephen, if you want to put the pictures that I sent you earlier in chat of those
Sure.
MiG-29s, you can. There's these 2 MiG-29s. They're sitting at the Quincy, Illinois airport. According to Google Maps, these 2 unairworthy MiG-29s, which, like I said, they were owned by Air USA and now owned by Raven, they've just been sitting on the tarmac at the Quincy Municipal Airport, just not moving.
Wow.
And I have several years. I have a 2023 picture as well that I took when I started my Stavatti research. And these aircraft, they don't move. So even before I talked to Don Curlin, I more or less know that these aircraft,
2 years,
if you look at it, only the shadows are really different because obviously these pictures were taken at different times of the day. These aircraft have not moved an inch, which means they probably can't move an inch. They're not airworthy.
Yeah, you can't leave a jet fighter sitting on a tarmac for 2 years and then just fly it.
These may have been sitting there for more than 2 years. It may be like 3 or 4, or maybe even...
Yeah, maybe you only caught 2 years because you weren't paying attention 5 years ago. They could have been sitting there for all we know.
It would not surprise me if parts have been scavenged from these airframes and those parts have made their way to the Ukrainian theater of war.
And you know what's interesting is that multiple times David Wilcock has talked about this MiG-29 upgrade deal.
Well, hold on, I'm not done. So of the 4 that Air USA and Don Curlin had, these 2 non-airworthy are now boneyards owned by Raven. And since they're not airworthy, and I contacted Raven by email and got a confirmation from them, they don't have any MiG-29s. So these are basically just a giant MiG-29 junkyard that we're looking at right here. Now, the 2 MiG-29s that Don had that were airworthy were not given to Raven. After speaking with the Quincy Municipal Airport, actually one of their former directors, a guy by the name of Chuck Miller, and also after speaking with Don Curlin, I have been able finally to locate the ownership and location of these other 2 MiG-29s. And they were purchased by a billionaire named Jared Isaacman. Mr. Isaacman is also well known in the MiG-29 world.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because there's one other MiG-29 that Mr. Isaacman owned before he bought Don's 2 MiGs that we're talking about here. Mr. Isaacman's first MiG-29, Stephen, is Paul Allen, Microsoft billionaire Paul Allen's old MiG-29. If you look up pictures on Google and you look at this MiG-29, it's got like a wild camo livery. It looks wild.
Well, that's very interesting.
Now, I know we're talking about billionaires and their toys here. I need to point out, Paul Allen is not qualified to fly the MiG-29. Mr. Isaacman, who's a billionaire, bought it from him. There are 2 pilots, Stephen, in the United States that are qualified to fly the MiG-29. One of them is billionaire Jared Isaacman.
Oh, that's interesting.
So this billionaire, who actually also founded Draken Aero, if you look at the public information on that, Mr. Isaacman not only owns Now, the only 3 remaining MiG-29s that are airworthy in the United States, he's one of 2 pilots that's qualified to fly them. So this is not just a billionaire with his toys. He's actually a subject matter expert on the MiG-29. Because he
But isn't
owns.
it interesting that they're saying they're going to buy 4 MiG-29s, and there isn't even 4 MiG-29s in the United States for them to buy?
I'm about to get to that. So
Okay.
we have now established, and by the way, Mr. Isaacman, so Mr. Isaacman's original MiG-29 that he got from Paul Allen, plus the 2 that he bought from Don Curlin, they are located in the hangar that's slightly to the southwest of this picture that we're looking at.
Interesting.
So these 2 non-airworthy MiGs are parked in front of the hangar that stores the only 3 airworthy MiG-29s
Yeah. So
that
in
are
other words,
left in the United
these 2
States.
are parts.
So these 2 are parts. The other 3 that are in the hangar are owned by Jared Isaacman. I spoke with Mr. Curlin. He told me in no uncertain terms that Mr. Isaacman likes his MiG-29s and he's not selling them. So here's where we stand. We have 5 MiG-29s. 2 of them are not airworthy. They're owned by Raven. The other 3 are airworthy. They're owned by Mr. Isaacman. He's not selling them. And you're right. It does not appear that there are any more MiG-29s in the United States that Stavatti could possibly source for this project.
Wow. And how many times has David Wilcock talked about this MiG-29 upgrade project, and they're getting all these orders?
Now
They
I
can't,
should.
they can't pull the orders if they got them because they can't get the source planes to convert. And I want to
should.
take a moment to thank, I apologize,
Yeah.
Sleazy. You're on new software. Sleazy, I love the user ID with a kind and generous $10 super chat, says, caught one live finally. This channel is Kino. Oh, you're from Kino Casino. Those guys are awesome. So funny. I'm going to be a guest there, I think 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this coming Monday. Thank you, Sleazy, for helping us to praise the cash.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just don't. I hate it if I forget to read one. If I miss it.
No worries. So if you actually read down on the PPM, there's a section where Stavatti has an alternate proposal to upgrade MiG-29s. Let me locate that here.
And they're saying that they got the Ukrainian Air Force contract.
Yeah. So later on in the project, let me get to that point.
And this is like a 91-page PDF you have here?
Yeah. So there's an appendix.
But listen, I just want to point
77.
out.
Go to page 77.
Okay. I just want to point out that David Wilcock makes all these claims and he has no evidence of anything. And, he's saying that people are harassing him or something. You've got a 92-page PDF document that details that this is all fairy tales, essentially.
Well, and we haven't even seen the best of it, right? Like if you look at this document, there's spelling errors. There are factual erroneous errors. For example, there's one page where Stavatti says they're going to buy their Niagara property, and Stephen, on the very next page, it says they already acquired it.
Real pros here, right?
So this page 77, this is an appendix, right? And this is, I guess, Stavatti's plan B. If they can't obtain MiG-29s to upgrade in the United States, I'll just very briefly describe what their plan B is here. Their proposal to Ukraine is that Ukraine disassembles one of their MiG-29s, puts it into a container, and ships it intermodally to the United States for upgrade.
Because that's an easy thing to do, right?
And Stavatti proposes doing it at the Quincy Municipal Airport. I talked to Don Curlin, and it doesn't look like that's ever going to happen.
Big surprise, John.
Yeah. So I mean,
all their plans that they're telling people they're going to do, it just doesn't. Nothing's panning out here, John.
Yeah, I mean, additional research and some things that I'm putting in the book are there are European companies that have already eaten Stavatti's lunch on this. They've already signed deals with Ukraine to provide retrofitted or upgraded MiG-29s. And of course, those companies are in Europe, so they're going to be easier to do business with because who wants to ship one of their planes halfway across the world intermodally? It does not appear that any of this is feasible.
Yeah. It sounds like. So, do you get a sense? Do you think that Stavatti, the Beskar, and the people at Stavatti are are just telling David Wilcock these failed plans and he believes them, not realizing that this is not even physically possible, you know?
It can seem like that if you pay attention enough to what David says, if you look at some of the events surrounding the company, you can you can sort of jump to that conclusion. But in my research and writing so far, what I make a point to point out here is that we really don't know how much David does know versus, what he doesn't know. We don't know if we don't know how much confidence he has in any individual plan or part of a project. And on the flip side, we don't know what, if anything, is being hidden from him. It sure seems like there
Yeah,
is
they're
at
hiding
least
this stuff from
it
him. Do you think they
sure
told him, oh, we're going to do this MiG-29 upgrade plan? But they forgot to tell him that there's only a few MiG-29s in the United States and they can't buy any of them.
it sure seems like there is at least a certain amount
Wow.
of deception.
It seems like the scammer's getting scammed to me, you know. And Richard S. Moore is here and says, Ukraine needs those hover cars. And Moody Mongol says, alternative plan, build a MiG-29 transformer bot. That's just so stupid. So, and what about all these deals? David Wilcock's always saying like, "Oh, Chris is going overseas and he signed these deals," because you've detailed that they've claimed that they had these big deals in the past, but they've never produced anything. So, what's the story there?
Well, what's the story there? Um, Listen, I'm about to put something into a chat. We're about to go into the magic school bus time machine, ladies and gentlemen. I'm about to put it into the live chat here. Okay. I have put into the live chat a story about Stavatti and their prototype hopes, and it's an article from a journalist from 1998.
Wow, I'm gonna try to get that now while we're
It's in the
talking.
live chat. Let me send it to you on
Yeah,
Twitter
please,
as well.
Twitter.
I
Yeah.
just sent it to you. Yeah. This is a very old article, man. 1998. It's one of the oldest articles I found of Stavatti attempting to get
I
funding.
didn't get a link in the Twitter, so
Oh, you know what? It says failed to send. Why? Why?
oh,
Why does Twitter block that?
yeah,
Let me
I
put it in
don't
the
know.
private chat. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Um, and do you see it? I just put it in there.
Nope.
I put it in groups.
Oh, okay. Let me go over
There.
to the groups. Okay, I'll get that. I'll get that up and we'll share that. Fighter jet manufacturer hopes prototypes take off. And this is an article from 1998.
That is correct. And you know what? It includes more of the nonsense that we've already talked about. The very first line, if we read this here,
Oh, it
you
tells
may
me I need a subscription.
well, you have to disable JavaScript, my friend. But anyway, the very first line says NATO's next line of fighter jets could be manufactured from Niagara County if Stavatti of Minnesota relocates to Wheatfield Business Park. I've already made several statements about this on X and Twitter and whatnot, but Stavatti has never owned Wheatfield Business Park and they have never leased Wheatfield Business Park. They have no legal interest in that property. And I go into more detail on this in my book
Wow. So
with
this, in other
pictures.
words, this is just more fairy tales. They're
But
saying they're going to do something that's someplace
not
they
only
don't
that,
own
Stephen,
or rent.
not only that, but I include pictures. Someone actually runs a blog of Wheatfield Business Park because it used to be the Bell Aircraft facility. It has historical importance. If you look at these pictures, the building is literally crumbling to the ground, parts of it. And Stavatti is telling their investors, and David Wilcock is making YouTube videos about our massive second facility, and the thing needs to be bulldozed.
Wow. Yeah, I remember he said they're buying a massive second facility, and
Yeah.
he wasn't sure whether they were going to build the hover cars in the hangar or at our new facility that we're buying.
I mean, I have this fact
And
not only
but
on.
let's take a moment. Let's slow down for a moment and just realize this because I think this is important to point out. They these guys are saying we're buying a second massive facility. But they said this in 1999 that they were going to buy that or whatever, and they haven't. So 24 years ago, They buy the airplane hangar in Niagara. They can't afford the upkeep or the expenses of it because all the creditors are suing them for services rendered but they never paid for. And they're saying, "Oh, and we're going to build a massive second facility." Like, this doesn't make no sense. You can't even pay the bills on the first property you have.
Well, that's not the end of the story. In a recent Wilcock live stream, Wilcock implied that they were going to take the Wheatfield Business Park and build one of those cities of the future or whatever.
In the Wayfield
Yeah,
Business Park that they don't own.
right
That's
next to an
crumbling
airport.
and falling apart right next to an airport.
Correct.
Great,
Yeah.
great. So, what really strikes me, John, is that there is reality, which you're bringing us, and there is this false, fairy tale reality that Wilcock portrays to his audience. Like, oh, we have this big company and this big airplane hangar, and we're getting all these big, huge deals. People are going to invest $5 billion into my company. And then you look at this reality and you go, like, this guy is so full of shit, he waddles when he walks. Like, how could anybody think any of this is real given this company's history of fabrications? And let's go over that. They once said that they were developing laser weapons for the United States military. That was not true, right? And
That
then
is
we
that is correct. And let me just briefly mention that I talk about this in my book, but Stephen, you would not believe how many patents that other people have filed that reference the Stavatti laser rifle.
That's
It's
funny.
insane. People are filing patents for this stuff, and they're referencing something that is a
That
pure
doesn't
fiction.
exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. And then they claimed that they had wind tunnel contracts that they did not have, according to your FOIA requests, right?
Yes, all of my FOIA requests seem to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Stavatti has no wind tunnel contracts.
Yes. And then they have made many posts throughout the years of like signing these big deals with foreign military, but they've never actually come to fruition any of the claims.
Yeah, I think the earliest one is plans with Serbia back in 2017, and obviously that never came to fruition.
So it sounds
And
like this company is just a bunch of liars and
it, it
embellishers and exaggerators. I mean, they even lie about stupid things. Like, remember Beskar? He said that David Wilcock said that Star Wars named Beskar armor from the Mandalorian after Christopher Beskar because he made spaceships, right? He made
well,
spaceships for the prequels.
yes, he made spaceships, and the folks with Industrial Light and Magic, I think that's the story. They kind of talked to Chris Beskar, and he said that he gave them like a little bit of insight as to how those came about, and they were grateful. So in his honor, they named the Beskar armor. Yeah, as I've sent you, we don't just have third-party sources like Wikipedia, which
No,
straight up
yeah,
says
we have the person. You talked to the person that invented Beskar armor, the writer.
yes, and I emailed her. I emailed the author. She was very she was very gracious to respond to my email. She gave me a very long email, basically describing her entire thought process and history of how she came up with the word. Because she's an author and she's written a lot of Star Wars books. She's a massive contributor to the
I
Star Wars
remember, yeah, and
universe.
I think I've read some of her books. Yeah.
In her email, she said she's come up with thousands of words in the Mandalorian language. And of
Yeah,
course,
but isn't it interesting, John? Like, listen, if you're like on the level and you tell your massive audience a big fat lie like that, and then somebody like you or me comes along and speaks to the author that it actually invented the term, and they say it has nothing to do with him. I don't even know who he is. You would think that he would have to like say something like, oh, Chris was just say something like, oh, Chris was just messing with me or something. He's never addressed this. It's just a big, bold faced lie to be telling people. And
well,
it
remember,
sounds like something that an embellishing bullshitter would say,
well
like some
they can't
braggart.
they can't really get out of this one, remember, because David Wilcock said Chris Beskar invented Beskar armor, and that's the truth. And when he said that, his eyes in the live stream went down. He broke eye contact with his audience, and that's a tell that you're being dishonest with your audience when you do something like that. If you say that's the truth and then you immediately break eye contact, it's not a good sign. But we don't just have what David Wilcock says. of course, you called Chris Beskar on one of your Lime streams, I guess maybe a year and a half ago.
I did.
And
Yeah.
Chris Beskar admitted on stream that he invented Beskar armor.
He doubled down and said he did. Yeah.
So
What
it's
he didn't know is that I had already got the email from you that you obtained. So I knew 100% he was lying. But I
yeah,
wanted to give him an opportunity. And I think, as I recall, I even tried to tell him, like, the author said no, or yeah, he wasn't
yeah.
having it. And I want
So
you to comment on this too, because this is funny. In this tweet, you say, is David saying that his course is video proof that Chris Beskar is violating the Espionage Act? For the record, I do not think this is the case because there is no serious indication that Chris Beskar was ever in a classified program other than trust me, bro type claims. So for those who are unaware, David Wilcock is basically telling everybody that Christopher Beskar worked on all these classified projects. I think he even mentioned he worked at Area 51 on secret government projects and technology. It is crazy because wouldn't Beskar would get arrested if he was just giving out, government secrets on YouTube videos, But let's take a listen to this, and I want to get your
Sacred
reaction.
science that's like all this genius level stuff about sacred geometry, and Chris Beskar is there with me in that, leaking all kinds of classified things.
He just said he's leaking all kinds of classified things. And he's selling the course. How is this not fraud? Shouldn't he have to prove that Chris Beskar actually worked on classified things? And if he can't prove that, then no, Chris Beskar is not leaking classified things in his $333 fake course.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of two possibilities. Either he's not telling the truth, either they're presenting falsehoods and they're not leaking classified things because they were never in classified programs.
Or they are, and they should be arrested.
Yeah. Exactly, for violations of the Espionage Act. So it's one or the other.
You're either violating the Espionage Act or consumer fraud laws.
But to be
he's
fair,
selling the course. This is so slimy.
To be
John.
fair, in these circles with UFO folks, I mean, they all do this. So I was in a secret program, a classified program. It's all smoke and mirrors, and it's all cloak and dagger stuff. I mean,
by the way, we're citing fair use and sharing this clip because we're using it to educate the public that it appears, like John and I have said, there's one of two possibilities. Either Christopher Beskar is violating the Espionage Act by leaking classified information in a paid $333 course with David Wilcock, or they're lying and defrauding people who think if you pay the $333, you're going to get classified secret information, right? This is crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, David kind of implies that that's been happening all the time, but it seems like recently
he's gotten more desperate.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten a little bit more direct. I mean, this is very direct. Saying that he's leaking classified things, that's a risky thing to say.
Yeah, I mean, he's telling people that Chris Beskar built all these planes, or what did he say? Chris Beskar built spaceships for the secret space program.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Didn't he say that on Mike Adams' Brighteon show?
Yes, he did. Yeah,
he told
so,
Mike Adams that he's built like 1,000 spaceships, and then he showed a design of one of the spaceships, and it looks just like a Stingray.
Yeah.
Did you guys? Has anyone seen this, Stephen? You want me to send it to you so you can put it on screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me go ahead and show the Stavatti spaceship here.
I'm gonna go into my messages here. Yeah, the last thing on Twitter I got was that Exhibit C. So if you have a photo of that, yeah, and it looks like a manta or something. It looks like, and by the way, I remember this one. There's a G.I. Joe toy. I'll see if I can't find that looks almost exactly like what they're showing people, claiming that this is a spaceship. There's a G.I. Joe toy. They're copying from G.I. Joe and Star Wars toys. It's so stupid.
Yeah, look, I wanted to give a brief rundown of where we are with Stavatti at the beginning. I haven't been able to do that. So let me just go over that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
It's October 31st, 2024. Not a whole lot has changed since the last time I was on the show regarding the Dimitrov lawsuit. It's still in the pretrial motion phase. We're still waiting for fact discovery, but fact discovery as of right now is due on November 30th. So it's only one more month until that's due. and it doesn't look like there's been a whole lot of movement on that topic. David Wilcock came
Oh,
out of
but
this.
I hate to interrupt you, but I'm sorry. We got to put this on the record. David Wilcock is claiming he's going to sue his critics, including me, and get me arrested. They're being sued by multiple creditors, and they can't hire an attorney for that. But according to David Wilcock, investors are going to give Stavatti money, and they'll be financed, and then he's going to use investors' money to sue what he perceives as critics. This makes no sense, John. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
he's implying that he's going to change his title at the company from Director of Advanced Technology to Director of Legal Strategy. By the way, and lest we forget, one of my sources has informed me that David Wilcock purchased his title at Stavatti with money.
Wow. So he didn't get it because he knows all the secrets of anti-gravity and free energy? He just bought himself a title at this shady-ass company?
That is correct. It is a boutique title.
A boutique title. Is that what you call it when you just give the company money to get a fancy title? So you
That's
can
what I
feel
call
important?
it.
So he can feel important. That's what he's doing. He wants to feel important, right? He's the father of anti-gravity and free energy, according to what, Obi-Wan Kenobi in his dreams or whatever? Or maybe it's the Archangel Michael now? I don't know. It's hard to keep
Yeah.
track of his wackadoo claims.
So we're basically status quo with the Dimitrov lawsuit. The Stavatti creditor lawsuits in New York. Ferguson won a judgment, and the affidavit was filed back in March. It doesn't look like there's been any movement on that, but they have a judgment that's awarded by the judge and filed with the court, so they've got a judgment in hand. Davis Ulmer is still in the pre-RJI state of their foreclosure lawsuit. They have not yet asked the judge for judicial intervention, so we're still status quo there. We're still status quo with the other liens, although one of the other liens was just recently renewed, and that went through fine.
So how many liens in total do they have against their property for non-payment of services rendered?
About 4. They
And what
actually
is,
had a
you know,
fifth one, but the fifth one with RP Oak Hill, that one was actually paid off in 2022. So that lien is discharged. So they've got 4 active liens.
so they've got 4 creditors suing them that they're unable to pay who have gotten liens against their property.
That's correct, but I have to
Wow.
say, I have new information about the status of this property, and all of the encumbrances on this title. There is not just 4 liens, Stephen, as I sent you in DMs earlier. There is also a mortgage.
Yeah, I'm going
If
to
you
show
want to put
that.
that on screen.
Yeah.
So
So wait, they got a loan on this property of how
no,
much?
so Stavatti bought the property for cash in 2020. Okay. And then they obviously signed a deal with the NCIDA for the pilot project. And then as part of the pilot project, the NCIDA actually put a mortgage on their property in February of 2021.
Well, what do you know? I
However,
just figured out how to fix that share screen problem. You just grab it and push it over to the big side. So,
yeah, and you're showing the wrong document too, by the way.
oh, I'm
You're,
sorry. Which
yeah,
one
well,
did you want me to share?
the mortgage.
Is that
We'll
the
get to
next
this
one?
document a bit later. Yeah, no, it's the mortgage. You don't? Do you see it?
Did you send that to me?
I did.
Oh, the mortgage. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, it's below that. It's below that. It's
But this
not
one
that one.
says mortgage, though. Right?
Scroll down.
Okay, hold on.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the mortgage. So the NCID, this is not the NCIDA's mortgage. That's a bit different of an animal, and Stavatti didn't get any money from that one. The NCIDA, as part of their project, put a mortgage on the property, and then also did a leaseback agreement with Stavatti. The leaseback agreement basically is Stavatti leases it to them, and then they lease it back to the Stavatti. The reason that they do this is because the principal legal interest is then held by the NCIDA, which is a municipal organization, and that's how they get out of paying their full tax, their full tax assessment.
Oh,
Because
wonderful.
because the NCIDA has taken a lease in it, if they get a municipal tax exemption. And if you look up Stavatti's taxes, it's right there. And then, of course, part of the lease back is that the agency then leases it back to Stavatti so that they can legally use the property and whatnot. So we've got that squared away. And
Okay,
that
but how much was the mortgage? So they
So-
took a mortgage out on the
so-
property, basically.
Well, hold on. So the NCIDA did their mortgage and lease back in February of 2021. Fast forward to September of 2021. And Stavatti filed another mortgage on this property. But this one is a bit different. It's a bit different of an animal, and it's basically an equity loan, right? Stavatti purchased the property in cash. They own it. They then signed this mortgage, and basically this deal, and I'm not sure if people can see it real well on the screen, Stephen, you may want to zoom in, but this deal in September of 2021 gave Stavatti $650,000 of cash, obviously extracted from the equity in the property, and then the note holder, the person who gave him the cash, obviously has, that principal plus interest due to them. And this mortgage, if you look at it, it's very strange because the principal and the interest were due in 3 months. So December of 2021.
Wow. Yeah, I'll see if I can't share it bigger here. I apologize.
Yeah. So Stavatti doesn't just have, right, and this mortgage is still active. It hasn't been satisfied. There's no filing that has discharged this mortgage. So Stavatti doesn't just have, $400,000 or so worth of liens on this property. They also have a $650,000 mortgage. And if you look at the county's website for the tax assessment, what this market value of this property is, they say it's only worth $793,000. Now, obviously, county
didn't they pay more than that for it?
They paid $1.2 million. Now they kind of had to pay $1.2 million because the previous owner didn't have the property on the market. Stavatti went to them and made an unsolicited offer. They basically made him an offer they couldn't refuse, and a $400,000 to $500,000 premium at least apparently was a good enough offer. It was an offer they couldn't refuse.
But I'm confused. So they took out how much in this mortgage did they take out as an equity loan?
So this is the equity loan, and it's $650,000.
And they were supposed to pay the $650,000 back 3 months after they got the money, right?
Correct. Yes.
And they haven't paid it back?
They have not.
Wow. I wonder if David Wilcock knows that they took $650,000 out of the equity of that building because they can't even sell the building until they satisfy this, right?
That's correct. I mean, until all of the encumbrances on the title are satisfied, they really can't sell it.
So they'd have to pay the $650,000 plus. Can you give us a guesstimate of how much the 4 liens are? I'm just trying to get to how much are they in debt just on that building?
I haven't done the full calculation, but it's roughly like $400,000. So, but here's the thing, these liens.
So the liens are like $400,000. So we've got $600,000 in a mortgage and $400,000.
We've got over $1 million. There's over $1 million of debt on
$1 million of debt on a building that's only worth $793,000.
Now,
this does not look like this is going to end well for them, John.
I should mention that is the county's market valuation. That's what they think it's worth. Counties get that wrong. Sometimes it's substantially wrong. Yeah. But there's no reason. It's very difficult for me to imagine why it would be wrong. The previous owner before Stavatti, they purchased it from the town for $262,000.
Wow.
So it's very difficult for me to imagine that it would be worth a whole lot more than $800,000. Now, again, I'm not a real estate expert, but
John, I'm still a little confused, and I want to make sure I have this clear. So they buy the building for what, $1.2 million?
Correct.
Right? And that money, according to Wilcock, came from him. He said that he gave them the money to buy the hangar. That
is correct.
Okay, so after they get $1.2 million from David Wilcock, they also get $650,000 equity loan.
No, they get Wilcock injects $1.2 million.
Okay.
They take that money and they go to the owner, the previous owner, which is I think Wheatfield Business Park or something. Not Wheatfield Business Park, but it's some other name. I can't remember.
Some developer. Yeah.
Yeah. They buy it from them. They're basically a real estate holding company. And then Stavatti owns title. They paid cash for it. It's in theory free and clear. Then obviously they do their deal with the NCIDA, and the NCIDA puts their leasebacks and their mortgage on it.
So they don't have to pay the proper taxes because
correct,
of that deal.
yeah.
Okay.
And the mortgage is also to structure the deal, and it's also there because if in the event that Stavatti didn't pay their discounted property taxes, their pilot payments, that debt would basically become the principal of the mortgage, and Stavatti would have to pay it on the mortgage. So it was there to help protect the town. So that's in February of 2021. Then fast forward, 6-7 months to September of 2021, Stavatti extracts the equity and turns it into
$650,000.
$650,000. Yes. And then, of course, fast forward on later, and they have mechanics liens that get placed in the property. It's a big mess. So now they have roughly $400,000 in liens that are on the property, plus the 650. It appears to me that there's
They're underwater then.
Yeah, it would appear that there are $1 million of debt, and the property's maybe only worth 800, 900 if they're
It's so
lucky.
fascinating to me, though, John. Like, how do you generate $1 million in debt when you don't produce anything? You never built anything, or it's crazy. It sounds like a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme or something.
Well, I mean, they extracted equity. They held title. They extracted equity. Let's be honest, a lot of people do that. A lot of people use their houses as piggy banks or ATM machines.
Well, I've gotten a home equity loan before. Yeah, sometimes you need money, and the best place to get it is take a little. I was always very cautious, though. Like I think one time we did we wanted to do a lot of home improvements, but I'm very thrifty, so I was doing it myself. But the materials were going to be expensive, so we got like a $5,000 home equity line of credit, but our house was worth a couple $100,000, so that's not a big deal. But taking out this much debt it's almost like they took out more debt than the property can be sold for.
Well, again, let's look at the timeline.
If that valuation is correct.
In September 21, they didn't appear to have any liens on the property. They didn't have any mechanics liens. So when they did that equity lien, it appeared to be the only debt that was on the property. It wasn't until months and years later that the mechanics liens also started rolling in and then appear to have pushed them underwater on this property.
But so
and the mechanics liens, remember, that's debt that is owed to Stavatti to vendors.
But wait a minute, though. We have to factor in the Dimitri money as well.
Well.
So Dimitri, the person suing him gave them $1 million. We're talking about $2 million in debt then.
Stephen, Dimitrov's loan is an unsecured loan. Okay.
Oh.
The mortgage is secured by the collateral, the property. The liens are also secured by the collateral.
Well, technically, though, it's still a debt. It's
secured by the property. They have a lien on there, so
I
the lien is
understand
secured.
that, but they told Dimitri, the guy suing them, the investor suing them, that they were going to take $1 million from him and give him back $4 million. So technically,
it is still debt, but it is unsecured. There's
okay.
No
so,
collateral.
But listen, they have $1 million in debt that is secured by the property, and then they have $4 million in debt to a previous investor.
Well, actually, it's $1 million in principal plus $5 million in profit.
$1 million in principal plus $5 million in profit, and David Wilcock's running around telling everybody that people are going to invest $5 billion in this company.
So
I have a background in accounting. The first thing an investor wants to see is financials. Do you know what I mean, John? Like, what investor would say, "Oh, you guys are millions of dollars in debt. You've never produced a single product or service, and you've lied about having all these contracts you don't have and developing all these things you've never developed. Sure, I'll give you millions of dollars."
Well,
that's why this money is never coming, John. Wilcock could say it's coming next week, every week. I don't think anybody's going to invest any money in this company.
The story gets more interesting. Did you notice in the last live stream that David Wilcock was talking about an appraisal on the property and how it wasn't going well? I have talked to several Stavatti sources, and I've also talked to some other folks on this, and I don't see how any kind of lender is going to get an appraiser to do what they want. And yet, Stephen, I've talked to several sources who seem to indicate that appraiser shopping is going on at some level, because I've heard, attempts by appraisers to appraise that property at like $5 million.
So that it could get more loans, take out more equity loans on it?
Wow. I've heard them trying to get an appraisal of $5 million. I was told of an appraisal of $9 million. And a year ago, Stephen, I had two sources who told me that Stavatti was trying to get the property appraised for, get this, $30 million.
Wow. But
And
most
I have
appraisers know they can only go so far in
yeah,
overvaluation.
this is a commercial industrial property. It used to be owned by the government for many years. It might be difficult to value this property with any kind of reasonable methodology, but I have so much difficulty wrapping my head around that the previous owner bought this for $262,000, and yet someone or something involved with Stavatti trying to get a lender, they seem to think it's worth, 5, 9, $30 million. I'm having difficulty wrapping my head around that. It
It's
doesn't seem
crazy.
credible.
It's crazy. And you've gotten some other information recently that you could share, right?
So yeah, the other images that I sent you, let's take a look at those. The part with the highlighted with the NCIDA and how much Beskar claims to have paid them, and then my Freedom of Information letter from the NCIDA. You can put those on screen.
Okay, 1 second. I'll get those. The letter from the NCIDA.
Put up Beskar's response letter with my highlighting first, so we can talk about it.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm getting that right now. Just bear with me one moment. One second.
Right, and again, it may be difficult for folks on the screen to read it. It's a little small. That's a bit better right there. So in this letter, in this response letter, first of all, Dimitrov, the plaintiff, sued them in February of 2023. Before in the United States, because I know this is an international audience, in the United States, before you sue someone, you typically send them a demand letter, basically saying, what's happened.
I want my money or I'm suing.
What your claim is and what the terms are to avoid a lawsuit. So that's what the plaintiff Dimitrov did here in late 2022. Now, I don't think legally you're required to respond to a demand letter, but in any case,
yeah, you can ignore it and let them sue you, I guess.
Chris Beskar responded to Dimitrov and his attorneys with a response. And on page 4 of his response, he gives some of the things that he allegedly has spent the investors' money on and the amounts. And one of the amounts is a little bit above $129,000 to the NCIDA for the pilot program, where they, get a tax exemption in exchange for cheaper taxes and, a bunch of other parts of the project.
Yeah, so he's telling the investor who wants his money, I gave $130,000 to the NCIDA, the local municipal government.
So, Stephen, now you can put my Freedom of Information letter from the NCIDA on the screen. Yeah, so naturally, I contacted the NCIDA and submitted a Freedom of Information request to them for any and all records related to any money that Stavatti has given them, including but not limited to receipts or copies of checks. And the NCIDA was very helpful. And of course, they're basically required by law to do this, but they replied to me. And as I've highlighted here, the NCIDA says that they do not have any receipts or copies of checks related to Stavatti's pilot payments. So based on this response, it would appear that what Chris Beskar wrote in the response letter of paying this organization $129,000, a little bit above, it would appear that that is a falsehood. And I should remind folks that this response letter, it's admitted as an exhibit in the case. It's admitted in court now. So it is now court-admitted fact, based on what the NCIDA is telling me that it's a falsehood.
He told the court of law that he gave these local municipality or the business development in the local municipality $130,000, and they say, we didn't get that money. So, wow, lying in court documents, that's great.
So it's an open question. Where did the $129,000 go?
Wow, I have a feeling David Wilcock's going to have to pony up $129,000.
And of course, that's just one of the line items on that page 4 in the response letter. If you read it, Chris Beskar says that he gave, I think almost $90,000 or a little above $90,000 to Ukrainian refugees. They paid off old credit card bills of thousands of dollars. There's some really very questionable things in here, especially.
Well, there's a question. The question, John, is ridiculous. Like, you get $1 million loan and you give $90,000 of that $1 million loan when you have to pay back $5 million to that investor. You give $90,000 to charity.
Yeah, and Chris Beskar has established a defense in his filings. He claims that Brian Colvin did this deal, and Brian Colvin forged Beskar's signature. And they also claim that the terms of the promissory note with Dimitrov were too good to be true, and they want to throw it back in Dimitrov's lap. But it has to be said, if someone in Stavati was subversive and made this ridiculous deal and forged Beskar's signature, and then Beskar spent that money, that doesn't seem credible.
That's a
If
problem.
you're working for a company and you're the CEO and
Yeah,
some
wouldn't you say
subversive,
like, "Whoa, we can't do this deal. We can gotta give the money back to that investor. We can't do this deal."
exactly. Everything that I've been, and this response letter
Instead of doing that, he spent all the money.
this response letter in total is really very revealing and startling, and it is my opinion that Chris Beskar wrote these things in the response letter as an attempt, like a Hail Mary last-ditch attempt to ward off the lawsuit and placate the plaintiff, and it obviously didn't work because the plaintiff sued them 3-4 months later.
Yeah, he wants his money.
But I mean, there's this response letter. It's really a good read. Everyone who's interested in this topic should give it a read. And like I said, it's part of the PDFs on recap here, and they're all free. So.
Well, yeah, I apologize. Actually, NCA does not bill, does not receive payments, and does not have receipts or copies of checks related to the Stavatti project pilot payments.
That's right.
Right there in black and white, they didn't get the money that Beskar claims he paid them.
That is correct.
Wow. Just wow.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, like, what do you see happening here then? Is this all going to come crashing down? And
so I've been getting a lot of questions lately on X and other places, and the questions are along the lines of, how can this go on this long? Why won't somebody do something about this? How can this drag out for this long? And my response is the wheels of justice move slowly. First of all, there's no indication in my research that any criminal or law enforcement organization is interested in what's going on here. That's not to say that it isn't happening, and that's not to say that
you're just not aware.
It hasn't happened, quote unquote, yet. I'm just not aware. I've seen no indication that that is the case. As far as what's going on civilly with Stavatti, the wheels of justice move slowly. They were able to get a significant advantage when they had their default removed in Dimitrov. They were able to do that like at the very last second and make the case and meet the standard for the default to be set aside. That was a big gain for them. It bought them a lot of time. And as far as their creditors in New York, as far as the mortgage and the lien holders in the property, as far as I've been able to tell with my sources, that is still moving. And I'm not sure how much time is left, but I really don't see any way other than, some mysterious cash injection in the Stavatti at the last minute. I don't see any way.
So I don't understand too. The one thing I don't understand. So they take out a $650,000 mortgage, and you said they're supposed to pay it back in 3 months. And when was that? And they've never paid it back. So doesn't that mean that they're in default or something, and that person owns a portion of the building then, or
it's up to the lender in that mortgage. And I blurred out the name. It's a public document. Anyone can get it, but I blurred it out because I don't want to publicize that person's name needlessly. But it's up to the lender, the note holder on that mortgage, to exercise their rights in this case. And I do believe they are doing so, but again, it takes time.
Oh, so there could be a new $650,000 lien against that property soon. Wow.
I mean, you say lien, but I mean, there could be a $650,000 foreclosure.
Foreclosure, that's what I meant.
And I should also mention that since that mortgage was put on the property and recorded with the county in September of 2021, before any of the other liens, that mortgage for the $650,000 under New York law, it appears to be the superior lien on the property.
So they get their money before anybody else.
Right. It's junior to the liens that came after it time-wise. I think in New York it's called first in time, first in right, because it was recorded before the others. It's the superior lien. So in the case where if it's underwater, if it can't fetch the market value, then obviously that lien holder, that mortgage would have to be satisfied before the others could be. So the other lien holders might be left holding the bag at some point. But
It
that's
really does.
speculation.
I agree with you that it really does look like it, unless they get a cash infusion of literally what, at least $2 million, they're done. This is not going to keep. Eventually, you're right, the wheels of justice move so slow, but eventually these lien holders are going to get their money and there won't be any equity left for anybody at Stavatti, including David Wilcock, who put 1 point whatever million dollars in for
I mean,
this
let's.
stuff.
David Wilcock, I think, described it as like a multi-pronged attack. Remember in that one
Oh yeah, the
episode?
deep state
Yeah,
is doing this to
it's a
them.
mul. And
It's not that they're irresponsible and giving
I
people
mean,
crazy deals like give
but
us $1 million, we'll give you back
yeah,
five,
but
or
remember he
you
said
know,
he was all coy about it. He was like, oh, maybe I'll talk about it sometimes with you guys. Well, we know what the prongs are. The prongs are Ferguson Electric's judgment, which has been
that's
awarded,
not a
and
deep state attack. That's a
yeah.
sprinkler company.
So
Yes.
yeah, so they've got that one of the prongs is a judgment from Ferguson. The other prong is the lien foreclosure from Davis Ulmer, and then the third prong is that mortgage that is way overdue.
Wow. Yeah, and it's just irresponsible decisions on the part of Christopher Beskar and David Wilcock and everybody else there, I guess. Just just startling. The difference between the false reality he presents on his show about, oh, we're going to do all these incredible things and the company's going to be real successful. And then you peel back these layers of deception. They've got all these liens against the property. The creditors are suing them. The investors suing them. And it appears that maybe the mortgage holder is going to go after them for their money too. So they're like sounds like $2 million in debt to me, secured or unsecured, whatever. It's still $2 million in debt for a company that's never produced a product. Like, what are they doing with all this money, John? Do you have any sense of that?
Well, which money? I mean, the only legitimate revenue they're getting is from
The dumpster company.
the dumpster, and that's I've calculated that about 3,000, 3,500 a month, which is better than nothing. But that's not going to pay
Yeah,
Aerospace
but you're not
bills.
paying back these kind of debts on $3,000 a month.
It
Imagine just the electric there is a couple $1,000s a month to
they
keep
are
the lights on.
they are desperate for a source of liquidity. And let me just mention, somebody just made a chat and it went on screen. I think his name was Gory G, and he said that he predicted they would declare bankruptcy to shield them from all these creditors. I have to say, I have talked to some sources, and there have been discussions within Stavatti about declaring bankruptcy. Those discussions have hit a brick wall at the top of the company. You can probably figure out who that brick wall is. Because if Stavatti declares bankruptcy, yeah, that'll help them with the lien holders, but all of the Stavatti stockholders, shareholders that hold equity in Stavatti, they stand to get wiped out in the bankruptcy.
Oh no. So if somebody is dumb enough to invest in their company and then they declare bankruptcy, they get hosed. Is that
Well,
what you're saying?
it depends. Remember,
Depends on how it's structured. Yeah.
in bankruptcy, there's like a pecking order of who gets what to the assets of the bankrupt organization, right? Normally, at the top are the secured creditors. They have the safest position and they get first dibs. Then it's the unsecured creditors, and then if there's anything left over, it would be the equity holders that would stand to gain. So we know who the secured creditors are, and their loans are secured by the collateral in the form of that real property in Niagara Falls. But then, of course, in a bankruptcy, we would also theoretically have the unsecured creditor, the plaintiff in Dimitrov, who is owed, I think, his $1 million principal plus $5 million in interest. And then, if there's anything left over,
Yeah,
then
but
perhaps
I know what you're saying about the difference between unsecured and secured, but it's still startling to me that basically there's $7 million in debt for a company that's never produced a product or anything. It's crazy. What are they doing with all the money, John? Where's it all going?
well, I mean, Chris Beskar, he listed where the $1 million from Dimitrov allegedly went. Of course, that's disputed, and some of it seems provably false. As far as the $650,000 they got from the equity extraction and their mortgage, it's difficult to say where that money went. My research hasn't sniffed any trails into that inquiry yet.
Do you know what
And
kind of lifestyle Christopher Beskar leads? Do you
no,
know, like, for example, how I mean, I think it's a fair question. Like, how expensive is his lifestyle? Because that could
So
explain where some of this money's going
it
to. Allegedly, I don't want to make accusations, but we're just spitballing here. Because
so
I'm at a loss to figure out where all this money went when they don't make anything. I
so
can understand. Like, I had a friend that started a technology company, and he was going to be making essentially like making microcontrollers, and he got in trouble. His business got in trouble. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong really, but he bought a whole bunch of chips from a Chinese company, and it turned out that the defective rate of those chips was something like 50%. And I'm not talking about a small amount of chips here. I'm talking about buying 10,000 chips at $25 a piece. You do the math. And he took out a loan to get the parts to build these boards, but in his case, you could go, he was trying to make something and he had an unforeseen huge problem that caused him to have financial problems. He eventually worked it out with the Chinese company and everything was okay, but he had trouble paying the loan because the boards were supposed to be done. The boards end up getting delayed. And I'm sorry, that's just the best analogy I could think of. But in this case, they're not making anything. So how do they justify millions of dollars in expenses when they don't have an assembly line. They don't have engineers or mechanics trying to build prototypes. They're not, it's just crazy to me. This is
so
Clown Town.
So the example you gave me was someone taking out a loan to make a capital investment in their business.
Good point. Yeah.
As far as I've been able to tell, the only capital investment that Stavatti has made was a few relatively minor improvements to their Niagara property. Of course, those improvements were done and they didn't pay the full bills for them, hence their mechanics liens that they have debts on.
Yeah.
But you asked me earlier about Beskar's lifestyle. I haven't gotten a real good beat on exactly what his lifestyle is, but let me just mention something here because I'm glad you brought it up. David Wilcock on every live stream that he streams every Sunday now, he really tries to make it come across like he's suffering, like he's in a bad financial position, and without contending whether or not that's true, because there's reasons to think it might not be true. I have to say that in my discussions with my Stavatti sources, it is obvious to me that if David Wilcock is financially suffering, he is not the only Stavatti associate that is also suffering. I will give an example. One of my sources I was talking to almost a year ago, when I was talking to them, they were sitting. Hello, can you still hear me?
What's
Are we
that?
mute? Okay, I thought we went mute for a minute. Anyway, so one of my Stavatti sources, I was talking to them, and they told me while they were talking to me that they were sitting in their car. And naturally, I asked why. And they told me it was because they had an automobile payment that was coming due, and they didn't have the money. So they knew that they were about to have to go into the house and have an unpleasant conversation with their spouse about their spouse giving them some money for their automobile payment. And they were sitting in their
Wow.
car ruminating, and they didn't want to do it, and it was very uncomfortable for them. So, and I have another Stavatti source that allegedly is running let's say, some side operations for personal money. I mean, I have to say, if David Wilcock is suffering, he's not alone in Stavatti financially.
Yeah. So maybe like Christopher Beskar is begging all these board members to help pay these bills, and they're all kicking in money, or yeah.
That's a different angle. There was the same stream, Stephen, where he did the whole UFO Lucifer, taking that out of context, that whole attack. That same live stream, earlier in the live stream, David Wilcock described something called the Stavatti Friends and Family Donors Program. Did you happen to catch that part?
Yes, and this sounds completely illegal to me.
So if you listen to how he describes that, he says that he's the biggest contributor to the Stavatti Friends and Family Donors Program. And then he sort of cuts himself off and corrects and says, well, actually, not donor, but investor. That is incredibly suspicious for him to say that. Ladies and gentlemen, donations and investments are not the same thing. They're not even close to the same thing. A donation is money that you give and you expect nothing tangible in return. An investment is basically a diametrically opposing definition. It is money that you give when you do reasonably expect a tangible return.
Well, maybe David Wilcock thinks it's an investment, but Christopher Beskar and Stavatti think it's a donation, and they don't ever have to pay it back. You know?
That is an easy conclusion to maybe infer, but it's actually that's actually a line of inquiry that I've been trying to chase down, because it's really ridiculous for an organization to have something called a friends and family donors program, but then somehow unofficially their investments, that that just doesn't add up. That's very, very questionable.
You're right. You're right. It doesn't add up. And also, I wanted to ask you about we got to talk about the latest claims that they're going to build electric cars, because you've done more research on this company than anybody I'm aware of, right? Do they have anybody in their employment on their board that has any experience whatsoever in the automotive industry?
Not that I've seen, no. They have zero.
So how do you think they're... Oh, we want to thank Rotary Motion for a kind and generous £2 super chat. Says, happy Halloween. I need waiters for all this bullshit. Thank you, Rotary Motion, for helping us to praise the cash. Still don't have the praise the cash bumpers in this new software, but we will soon. I'll just praise the cash manually. So he's saying it's like, this is like a carnival of a clown show to me. 3 years ago, he said they were going to build hover cars and they'd have a working prototype in a year. No prototype, 3D model, he calls a prototype. He said they were going to build all these different airplanes. They haven't built any of them. He said they were going to do the MiG-29 upgrade program. They haven't done that because it's impossible for them to do that. And we know why, thanks to your research. And now he's saying they're going to build electric cars. How? It's like, forget about all those other pie in the sky promises that I told you about. Now we're going to build electric cars.
Yeah, they don't have any productive capacity to produce cars. None of them, as I said, none of them has any experience with in the automotive industry or with EVs. David Wilcock claims that they have new battery technology. One of my sources indicated to me that it was a nuclear battery, which, incredulous as that sounds, I actually went ahead and submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, who returned my request in 24 hours, telling me explicitly in no uncertain terms that Stavatti is not a participant in the nuclear industry.
Meanwhile, they're telling people they're developing nuclear batteries, and they're so regulated that there would be records, right? And you looked for them and you didn't find any.
I mean, the whole concept of a nuclear battery is almost like science fiction to me. Like, there are things like small modular reactors or thorium technologies that have been discussed.
Yeah, they put them in deep space. There's
all kinds of next generation nuclear technology out there that's been talked about and that I've looked into. But a nuclear battery, I mean, they're making it sound like it's like they can just plug a nuclear reactor into your car. I mean, are they going to pass
like free energy? Oh, let's just make a free energy engine. Nobody's ever done that, but we'll do it.
How is your automobile with a nuclear battery going to pass a crash test?
Good point.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. I mean, it was actually kind of awkward, looking into that line of inquiry, because I'm just thinking to myself, like, nuclear battery, these are almost like child's ideas. It's really, some of it's nonsense.
Well, free energy too, But I always love too that basically David Wilcock is saying they have this superior battery technology that can get you like 2,000 miles of range. And, I just look at Elon Musk and, like, if that technology was even possible, wouldn't Elon Musk have it before these clowns that never produced an electric car in their life? Well, just apply a little bit of logic to the dumb shit. You're right. It's childish. It's like a 10-year-old coming up with these ideas. It's crazy.
I had speculated earlier, and I believe also on X or other places, that this whole trip by Beskar to China and, they met with SAIC, which is a large EV manufacturer in China. It's my guess, maybe, that their business plan here is that they anticipate the United States possibly banning Chinese companies from shipping their EVs to our shores.
Well, Trump wins, maybe, yeah.
Well, I mean, who knows, right?
You got to pay back Elon somehow.
if that happens, maybe Stavatti somehow imagines that they're going to do a deal with a Chinese EV company where Stavatti acts as a shell company and imports the cars.
Yeah,
And
or does
since,
some assembly here or
yeah,
something, so they can say, well, Chinese parts, but American manufactured, so we can get
I
around
mean,
the regulations.
it could be assembly, but remember, Stavatti has no productive capacity for that. So I've thought about
This is
maybe
such a shell game.
the Chinese company will fully manufacture the cars without their badge, and then they'll just ship them over here, and Stavatti will throw their badge in the front of the car, and then it's not a Chinese EV, it's a Stavatti EV. But that's just speculation on my part as to what they might do with I mean, it's really difficult to imagine Chris Beskar trying to get into the automotive industry when for 30 years he has
And that's a good point to make. Yeah, he failed at the aviation industry for 30 years, but what are the odds that a guy that failed at the aviation industry for 3 decades is going to throw his hat into the electric car industry and be successful? I'd say about zero, He's got a proven track record of bullshittery, this guy.
I find it
Perfect.
hilarious.
This is the perfect company for David Wilcock, though. It's like he couldn't find a better bunch of bullshitters to make these, It's like David Wilcock is like a world-class bullshitter, and he found this guy who's also a world-class bullshitter. You're like, let's tell everybody we're building electric cars and free energy devices and hover cars and the fastest jet ever produced. Like I said, at this point, David Wilcock and Stavatti have to produce the fastest jet ever produced that also flies in space, a free energy engine, an anti-gravity hover car, and now electric vehicles. Or they're liars. They are liars. There's only 2 possibilities. You lied about all that, or you do it all and prove you didn't lie about it all.
In the last stream, it was really funny because David Wilcock was talking about this, and he said something like, "Oh, we don't really want to move in on Elon, but we'd like to make some next generation better EVs." And I'm just thinking to myself, you don't want to make Elon your competitor, but you're going to make him your competitor.
Yeah, and unlike David Wilcock, who claims he has a 180 IQ, I would go out on a limb and say I don't know if it's 180, but the Elon Musk has a genius level IQ.
Steven,
Absolutely has a genius level IQ.
Don't forget about the med beds based on Area 51 technology.
Yeah, he said they're going to do that too. So in order to get out of proving to the world that he is a just absolute bullshit artist liar, he's going to have to produce all these things: hover cars, a space plane that's the fastest plane ever built, hover cars, free energy, electric cars with 2,000-mile range. It's just so stupid because it's like, come on, man. You think you're going to beat Elon Musk and have a better product, but you have zero? The guy can't change a battery in a smoke detector, John. But he's going to come up with a better electric car with better batteries and better range than Elon Musk did. Right?
Yeah. We've not only been demonstrated that he didn't, he could have trouble replacing the batteries in his smoke alarms, but as we saw in that one Mike Adams Brighteon video, David Wilcock does not even have, a 6th grade level understanding of how electricity works. He does not understand basic electricity.
I agree. I have a background in computers and electronics, and I can tell you, he knows absolutely nothing. We want to thank Richard S. Moore with a kind and generous $20 Canadian, with a great comment, the comment of the night. And that, David, is David and Chris need to quickly build a hover car so they can float away from all their creditors. Thank you, Richard S. Moore.
That's not going to work. Even if they built their hover car, their documentation says it only has a 5,000 feet elevation.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
as high as it can
can't float away too far. Thank you, Richard S. Moore. Raise the cash.
I would also like to say on the med beds, it's really uncomfortable that David discusses it, because if you've noticed in the chat on his live streams, there's people that make comments along the lines of, "Oh, David, I have a sick or dying family member. When are the med beds going to be available?" Every time I see a comment like that, I cringe.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be like, "Oh, a hover car, that's so cool," and be disappointed. But but to be tantalized with med beds
Yeah,
when you
where
have a
people
sick
are
or
dying
dying
of
family member,
cancer and stuff. Yeah.
it's really cringe, man.
And we want to thank Tales of the Sonic Voyage for a kind and generous $5 super chat. It says, Happy Halloween, Stephen. Happy Halloween to you. And Tales of the Sonic Voyage, when I get a chance, I'm going to tweet out and put your new album on my Facebook so people could check that out. He's a great guitar player, this guy, John. Like, great. And songwriter. Yeah. So, what do you see happening in the next couple of months then? They're going to have to answer some of this stuff by the end of next month, right? Some of these lawsuits and things.
Well, the fact discovery and Dimitrov is due on November 30th, but that's not the end of the pretrial motion phase. So it's really difficult to, predict what will happen there. It's also possible that discovery may get extended. They've already extended it once, but I think that if they were going to extend it anymore, they probably would have already filed to do so. But again, I'm not a legal expert, so it's difficult to predict what will happen with the Dimitrov lawsuit. As far as their New York creditors, I think that the clock is ticking, and it's like 1 minute to midnight.
They're going to have to pay up or move out. Yes.
I'm gonna make a prediction that unless Stavatti gets some kind of last second emergency injection of cash and liquidity into the company, and they get it in time, we may not see Stavatti Aerospace in 2026.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
But that's just a prediction. Things
You mean
may
2025
change.
or 2026? You think they got a year left if they don't get the money?
If you had asked me a year ago, it would be difficult to see how they get to 2025.
Well, he'll just
But
go back to just having a website and making his false claims on a website
the
with
the
no
fed,
buildings.
the federal Dimitrov lawsuit, again, the wheels of justice move slowly there, and court procedures take time. The pretrial motion process takes time. And as far as their creditors, again, we've discussed that Stavatti has all these mechanics liens, and then of course those are all junior to this mortgage, which Stavatti also apparently has not paid off. So
650, yeah. Wow.
it's so complicated there, and I'm sure, and I've been thinking about this, or I was thinking about this earlier, and now that now that we've established that there's a good chance that property is underwater, I don't have to make so many guesses. But these companies like Ferguson and Davis Ulmer that have these court actions, they haven't pushed it all the way yet, and it looks to be the reason for this is because the property might be underwater, and nobody wants to be left holding the bag.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Just a startling, and we titled tonight's broadcast Fact versus Fiction. David Wilcock is presenting a fantasy to people, clearly, because when you dig into the facts, and they're so deep in debt, they're never producing any products, and they keep saying they got these big deals coming.
So
they've been doing this forever. I found on Wayback Machine an older website of theirs where they were talking about the laser weapons.
Yeah, the Wayback Machine is a great source. I mean, it's archived Stavatti's website pretty consistently and frequently for almost like 20 years now. So the Wayback Machine is a great resource for looking at old versions of Stavatti's websites. And I just want to mention something. Somebody just put a chat on the screen about the no farting cow technology that David Wilcock talked about.
Yes.
I wouldn't. It does not seem like that technology is credible based on the information that I have in the sources.
Who would have thought that? You can't genetically engineer a cow that doesn't fart, so it's better for the environment. Wow.
Yeah, David has also talked about things like nano concrete, and my research has uncovered some information on that as well, and it does not look like that is going to be a credible product anyway, either. So.
Yeah, and somebody wrote, I guess the med beds don't work on dogs.
Oh, that's awful, man.
And let's talk about that for a second, because David Wilcock is telling everybody there's going to be this Ascension event. We'll all get superpowers. Why do we need a hover car then? People are hammering him in the live chat, and let's talk about that too. David Wilcock said he had to hire an entire team, 5 people, 8 people, 10 people to stop me. I'm not in his live chat, but it appears that whoever was deleting all the nasty comments is gone now, because now everybody's leaving nasty comments. People are sending me screenshots. Like,
Yeah, I took some screen caps from the last one, and an individual was saying some things about David Wilcock, and before the stream even started, and I mean they were not very flattering things. Let's put it that way. There's been a lot of discussion in David Wilcock's chat the last couple of weeks that I mean
yeah, and
he would.
I want to put one other thing on the record is David Wilcock keeps telling people that he only has one critic, John, and that critic is me.
Well, see, it's you, but it's also myself and ex-user Macario Mend. Apparently, all three of us are like one doppelganger
When
or
we
something.
combine our powers,
That's
we
right.
become Captain Fuck David Wilcock, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a video of that. And by the way, we had a guest earlier this week named Shane Ruiner. I'm sure he would be considered a David Wilcock critic because he spilled all the beans about the early formation of this cosmic disclosure,
Yeah, I
stuff.
saw that. I saw that live, and what Shane basically said was that David Wilcock was grooming fake UFO people.
Yeah,
Like he was
imagine
putting them
that.
in he was putting them in hotels, vetting them out, trying to,
And I love that promising you get whatever you want. You
yeah,
get
the
drugs,
rocks,
women,
yeah.
rock star life. You get drugs, women, alcohol, whatever you want. Just help me tell lies to stupid people.
If that's
And
true, it confirms our worst opinions of Wilcock. If
I
it's true.
totally agree with you. And we want to take a moment also to congratulate our friends here. Uh, Darcy Weir has made some interesting films. And boy, I said quite some time ago, if you remember, John, that there is a docu-series that is coming out and it will be on streaming platforms. Here it is on Amazon. It's called Dark Alliance, the inside story of the Cosmic Con. And longtime show viewers will recognize that the narrator and the editor of this film is none other than Spooky, who's been a longtime supporter of Truth Seekers and produced and directed and written by Spooky and Darcy Weir, well-known filmmaker in the sort of alternative community. And here's what I'll say, John. I watched the first 2 episodes. There's only 2 available now, but I'm told that there will be more episodes available soon of this docu-series. This is brutal. This is brutal. The hits keep coming for David Wilcock. This does not paint him in a very good light, John.
No, I've seen the first episode, and I'm about a third of the way through the second episode, and it's very critical of everything that happened with David Wilcock and Corey Good.
Yeah.
Very critical.
And it sort of shows a pattern of this type of making up fake shit, collecting all the money you can, then running away when it all comes crashing down for a little while until you pivot to the next grift, And I'm just happy that this is coming out because Corey Good said he was going to make a docu-series, but I'm sure he would be the hero of his. He is the villain in this story.
Did you catch some of Corey's recent videos where he claims that the people producing that Alien Mania docuseries, they had a quote unquote sit down with him, and they basically told him that it couldn't be a hit piece. Did you catch any of that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I find that amusing.
Yeah, then he would probably say, well, then I'm not interested in pursuing this project. It's got to be a hit piece or I don't want to do it. And it's so stupid because he basically is like extorting his critics. Like Corey Good has basically said, and this is my opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion, especially most people would say I was one of his critics for a long time. He's basically saying like, you could either be in this and tell your side of the story or else. That's like a form of extortion. You can't twist my arm and make me be in your documentary so you can make money. And by the way, why would I want to do that? Is he going to pay me? Because he didn't pay any of his previous business partners for how long now?
I mean, to me,
can't trust this guy.
To me, that's an easy choice. If he came to me and said, say
No,
something for this documentary or else, I'd say, okay, bye.
I would give him a written statement, and then I would say, you cannot edit, crop, or otherwise. If you want to use this written statement, you can, but you cannot crop or otherwise edit this statement. You must include it in its entirety.
I wouldn't risk it with that guy. I wouldn't risk it with that guy.
And that's the other issue. Oh, like I'm going to go and let you film me, tell my side of the story, and then you get the right to edit it down. And yeah, no way. But I got to say, this Dark Alliance, the inside story of the Cosmic Con, I'm gonna do a whole episode. I made notes. I watched it twice, the first two episodes. Um, and for those unaware, I was interviewed, and I believe there's going to be one episode where it's mostly the interview that I did for this project. The first interviews in the first two episodes is Leon Isaac Kennedy, who was one-time business partner of Corey Goode, who he sued, Jay Widener, his former producer on Cosmic Disclosure, who he sued, and Jordan Sather, who he basically just used and never paid. But he didn't sue Jordan Sather.
Yeah,
But
I
there's
think
more interviews of me and a few other people that are coming in the future episodes. I was so happy to see this come out, John, because he's saying he's going to do a docuseries about all of this. Well, somebody beat you to it, buddy, and you're not the hero of this story. You
yeah,
are the villain.
and
And
this
so is David Wilcock.
docuseries is on Amazon. I seriously doubt anything Corey produces will be on Amazon. But you never know.
Oh,
But
you
I
never
doubt it.
know. Yeah, I'm going to look into that myself to see if I can get some things on Amazon. But I think it's a lengthy process, and you've really got to know what you're doing, or they don't accept, and then they have quality people. So if your documentary is not really top notch, they don't want it, or something like that, or so I've heard. I mean, I really don't know. But the good news is that, people are really starting to wake up to these clowns, and I think David Wilcock is going to have a lot harder time keeping the grift going forward. And,
Well,
it's karma.
like I said earlier, I've calculated that he's given them about, Dave Wilcock has given Stavatti about $1.5 million. But let's think about this here. David Wilcock is 51 years old. $1.5 million, that essentially adds up to what is a retirement.
Yeah, he
And
gave him his nest egg.
it's all been given to a company, and they're so over leveraged with debt that if Stavatti does go into bankruptcy, I do not see how David would be able to get any of his
Well,
money
if they're
back.
not paying their sprinkler company and they're not paying this other guy that put $1 million in, there's no real. Yeah, you would think they're not going to pay him either.
You
They're
know,
just not going to pay him.
I've always speculated whether Stavatti couldn't pay, their creditors, or whether Stavatti simply chose not to pay. And as we get down to the final hour here, we're gonna find out, and it's starting to look like maybe Stavatti can't pay. Maybe there's just no more liquidity, and maybe bankruptcy is going to be all but certain.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, yeah. And as more and more comes out about David Wilcock's, I told you we talked before the broadcast, friends, and I was telling John that there's some new paperwork on David Wilcock's shady charity, which we'll be detailing here on Truth Seekers very soon. I got to continue to go through the paperwork and do some sort of accounting work. The guy's spending something ridiculous. He's like spending $7,000 on an email address. At least that's what his paperwork says, and that doesn't look good. It looks like a real problem. A lot of red flags on that new paperwork that he filed, and we'll be going over that too.
Why would anyone pay $7,000 for an email address when you can get one from GoDaddy for like $10 a month?
Yeah, or you can get one from Google. You get one from Google for free.
Yeah, it's
MSN, email.com. There's 100 places you can get a free email address. I think you could still get a free email address at AOL.com, believe it or not.
Yeah, $7,000 for an email address, that's a highly questionable line item.
I would think so. Yeah, I would definitely think so. It's just, that's the wacky world of Wilcock that he lives in, where he could spend, thousands of dollars on meals and entertainment. I still would like an answer. What are you doing for charity except giving, maybe a penny or a nickel on the dollar of every dollar you collect, you give to some other charity? He's not. And if all you're doing is taking in money and then giving a little bit of it to some other charity, you don't need thousands of dollars of software. You don't need thousands of dollars of furniture. You don't need thousands of dollars of meals and entertainment and travel expenses and office supplies, And there's a really big issue here, John, in that he can't, for example, let's say he spent $100,000 of that charity's money on software, supplies, office equipment, furniture, software, cameras, microphones. He's not allowed to use any of that stuff for his for-profit monetized streams that are not for the charity. So, it's just my personal belief and speculation, but I think he's going to have a real problem because he's going to have to show receipts and say, I'm only using these things for the charity. Plus, he's giving money. Isn't he giving money to one of his friends from the charity? That's illegal.
If I
At least
remember
I'm
correct,
told,
if I remember correctly, wasn't there a Wilcock streamer video years ago where he said during the stream that it was like made possible by the Wilcock Spiritual Foundation?
Yeah, maybe he did do that.
I mean, I have to remember and go and find it, but I mean that almost sounds like an admission that he is spending the charity's money on streams, but who knows?
Yeah, he's going to have a lot to answer for, And I really don't think that making completely and totally false accusations against journalists like me or researchers and authors writing a book about this is a really good plan,
No, and we know as a result of the Del Morgan email that David Wilcock crowd-struck me and attacked us with that leaked Del Morgan email. I say Beskar. We actually don't know if Beskar knew that David Wilcock was going to do that, or if Beskar had anything to do with it. But
yeah, it's basically an attack to shut you up. The same thing with all these false accusations against me. They're trying to stop. He's desperate to get me to stop doing shows like we did tonight.
But
because
we know
we're peeling back all these layers of deception, and it's crumbling down around him. And if we keep doing this, the levee's got to break, John.
Because my phone number and email were in that email, so we know, or I know, that Beskar and Wilcock have my phone number and my email.
Yeah.
If they wanted to contact me
They
about,
can call you, give you their side of the story.
my
answer
DMs are open.
questions.
My DMs
Same
are
with
open.
me.
My phone lines are open.
Yeah, I always say the same thing. David Wilcock is welcome to come here, and I promise, I give my word as a man that I will be kind and respectful, but I'm going to have a lot of questions, and he won't do that.
Just so folks are aware, I have been researching this for about a year and a half, and David Wilcock and Chris Beskar, I've never had contact with either of them. I've done a tremendous
actually,
amount of,
I've been more successful. Don't you know you could just call and the CEO of this multi-million-dollar company answers the phone, John?
Well, I haven't tried though. To be fair, I have not even tried to call them.
Well, that's harassing him, If you call him and ask him a question about something he said that was ridiculous, that's harassment somehow.
Just so folks are aware, at this point, I currently have over 15 hours of telephone calls with current Stavatti associates, former Stavatti associates, and people adjacent to the company. I have over 15 hours, and not a single second has been with Chris Beskar or David Wilcock.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Spooky with the kind of generous £1.99 said, glad you enjoyed it. Congratulations. I know how hard Spooky. Listen, guys, it's only $1 an episode. Go buy it. Even I bought it, and I'm in the goddamn thing, or I'm supposed to be, but I'm one of those guys, like if my friend makes a CD or a vinyl or whatever, has an album on iTunes, I buy it. If my friend makes a film, I buy it just to be supportive. So you guys should go support Spooky and that project so that there could be future episodes. Thank you, and congratulations on the docu-series release. Well, at least we get 2 episodes. But I felt like that Dave Chappelle meme, like, y'all got any more of them episodes? When I was done the second one, John, I was like, oh my God, y'all got any more of these episodes? I need more. That's my only criticism of the docu-series. But I know that they filmed so much stuff. They were in the cross-country trip, and there's tons more material. I guess they have to collate it, edit it, get it together, whatever. I just hope there's going to be many more episodes of that because I lived that story of the whole Corey Goode rise and fall. I was in the background, but I was there going, this guy's full of shit and this is why and whatever. And of course, my direct involvement with releasing those depositions and whatever, I'm part of that story. So I want it to be told and told correctly. And here's what I'll say about that project, John. It is 100% factually accurate as I recall each detail. It is well researched, well sourced. It is well done. And it's going to preserve the history of this whole story of this rise and fall of a cosmic con man.
Yeah, when I was watching it earlier today, and like I said, I finished the first episode. I'm about a third of the way done through the second one. I found myself having to pause constantly because a lot of times there's, social media posts and whatnot put up on the screen, and you just have to like pause the video and read the whole
I
thing
know
to
because
really
it's
get the whole context and background of what's going on here. And as someone who's kind of an outsider, because like, I wasn't really paying attention to Corey Good in, 2018, 2019. You know, just pausing and just reading everything and just taking it all in.
yeah,
It was
some of those cringe posts of Corey Good, like telling Jay Weidner he's going to take his house and his inheritance and all of his everything he owns away
like
from him, and
like
Jesus
all like
Christ,
all all the posts with like the doxing group, just pausing and just taking those in. It's really revealing. It's frankly startling that that was actually going on.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And then the depositions with the admissions of everything that was done. Oh yeah, we made videos and we called Richard Dolan a P word, a child predator.
Well, you know,
And Stephen Greer, a predator, a child predator. Like, how dumb is he to do that in a deposition?
well,
He's this guy's dumb as rocks. He deserves what happens to him.
I give credit to the deposition because, as I said on my first time on this show, the Corey Good deposition was really what motivated me to start looking deeper into David Wilcock and questioning what he was doing and saying, and that
Oh
led me into
yeah,
my Stavatti research. So if the Corey Good deposition had never happened, or if it had been sealed in court and didn't see the light of day, what I'm doing with Stavatti now, this might not be happening. So I got to give credit to the
yeah, and that's a
deposition.
good point. I always have to remind people that when you see these Corey Good depositions, him and his idiot lawyer thought that they could get them the whole deposition marked confidential, and that nobody from the UFO community or anything would ever hear him say these things that he said in the deposition. Not so. So, great lawyer. By the way, I talked to his office about my David Wilcock situation. The same lawyer that did the deposition of Corey Good, because I figured he's familiar with these guys, very expensive lawyer. But, if you need one, you need one, that would be the guy I would hire, John, because you've
He
got
did
to
a
think,
tremendous job.
yeah, and you've got to think that David Wilcock, if he is dumb enough to sue me, would be thinking like, wow, he got the lawyer that took apart Corey Good.
My favorite part was when Corey's lawyer is talking to the other lawyer, and she's like, "Oh, this is going to be sealed, right? This is not going to be released publicly." And the other lawyer's response is, "That's between you and the judge."
Yeah, because he knew it couldn't be. He knew it could not and would not be. And that's the difference between a really good lawyer and Corey Good's lawyer. Corey Good's lawyer should have told him anything you say in these depositions is going to be made public. So you don't want to say anything that you don't want people to hear. She didn't do that. And also, what kind of lawyer doesn't advise their client don't admit to any illegal activity under oath? It's crazy.
Yeah,
Allegedly illegal
Corey,
activity. I'm not a
Cor-
lawyer, but it sounds to me like he made a lot of admissions to things that he shouldn't have in those depositions.
Corey made a lot of verbal revelations in the deposition. We can just leave it at that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's in my franchise Bible, John. Just read it.
Hey, to be fair to Corey, I'm also writing a franchise Bible, except my franchise Bible and Stavati will actually be the franchise Bible.
Yeah.
I should call it that. That should be the name of the book, right? The
Spooky
Stavati franchise Bible.
Spooky says no, they failed to respond to the challenge in court, meaning it was legally able to be released. Yes, and then they lied to me in a letter, which is another dumb move. If you're a lawyer and you threaten somebody in writing and say what you're doing is illegal, and it turns out it's not, you could face some consequences. And that's what they did to me, John. They sent me a letter saying that I had to take those down immediately and what I did was illegal and preserve all your documents. They were going to try to find out who the source was that gave it to me. But to this day, I have not, and I will never reveal the source that gave me all those depositions because I
Correct
think
me.
that they were a hero to give them to me, knowing that the public needed to hear them.
Yeah, I mean, if it's public information, if it's not sealed, then it's public, and you were not in the wrong. You were in the right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming here and shedding some light on all the latest. And if you get some more updates, maybe next month, you can come back and tell us how those lawsuits are going for David Wilcock and the Stavatti crew of,
Yeah,
dumbasses here.
yeah, I mean, based on some recent conversations that I've had with sources, you never know. It's been a long ride, but if we have another one of these next month, maybe we'll be talking about some startling new updates. Maybe one can hope.
Yeah, I really hope so. So I'm going to throw you out of here. I appreciate any idea when you're going to finish this book, or are you kind of waiting to see if this thing crumbles? Because wouldn't it suck if you put your book out like in a few months and then the whole company came crashing down spectacularly after you published the book? So are you kind of waiting to see how things are going to pan out before you
That
finish it?
that's part of it. I am kind of waiting to see how things pan out, and it always helps that I have new material every week, courtesy of David Wilcock Sunday live streams. But let me say this: if I had my way and I got all my ducks in a row and all the chips fell the way that I wanted them to, and I have clear sight and clairvoyance of prediction, I will say this, Stephen. David Wilcock has predicted Ascension for Superpowers in May of 2025. That's probably not going to happen. I'll go out on a limb, but if we're lucky,
No,
if
you're
if I get my way, in May 2025, the Stavatti book gets published, and we won't get superpowers, but we will get the
We'll
truth.
get a great book. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you want to stay for a moment? I'm going to share. I'm going to share something here. Somebody
Sure.
somebody just sent me the trailer to this Dark Alliance project. 1 second here. We want to make sure. I'm going to do a full show on this, but friends, the trailer for this Dark Alliance project. Remember, Spooky's both the narrator and the editor and writer, co-writer. And I can't believe that I'm actually sharing. There was a time when this Jordan Sather was the devil to me, but he's in it, and I think he had his mea culpa and maybe atoned for past sins, and I shouldn't be so harsh on him, because it turns out when you listen to his interview, he was a victim of Corey Good, just like a lot of the critics were, but he did benefit from his, whatever. I let it go.
The cyber stalkers are the dark.
All right, so my clients are not the dark forces?
No.
But I would say to those of you that are supporting him and helping him to defend himself, what's he defending himself from? Who is the dark side? Because see, if you really look at it and dissect it, no one is suing Corey. He's the one suing everybody. Nobody's suing him.
Good point.
Who is the dark force? Who is the cabal?
Yeah, the cabal.
He said things like I couldn't believe, to be honest with you. He told me he was talking about 20 and back and bases on Mars and the moon and all this. Although none of that was in his book. I do believe that there was a information contamination.
I was contacted by Roger Ramsor, Roger Richards, who at the time was Corey Good's business partner, manager, something to that effect. I believe he contacted me in about March 2017. I think if you look up sensational in the dictionary, you'll probably find David Wilcock's face in there. Because it is kind of like a cult tactics, cult-like behaviors that are going on around that group.
So I called Corey and I said, Corey, I'm calling on behalf of David. How much of a percentage is David going to get? Corey said to me, I'm not giving David a percentage.
You even try to cut
Corey
David
literally
Wilcock
called
out of the
himself
money train.
the Enoch of our modern times, and David claims to have all these insiders, and they prop themselves up to be these larger-than-life personalities.
Hundreds of people have been on Gaia, having different TV shows and different personalities. Have any of them turned around and sued Gaia? Nobody but Corey Good.
David is going to lead a conversation.
Raise our glasses to Bill William Hopkins.
Love you, Bill.
He told me, I forget the name of the company that created the Skynet,
Cyberdyne
the Terminator films. He said he started Cyberdyne years before the Terminator film came out.
But he couldn't work his
Let's
own
go back
phone.
to the beginning. I first met Corey and David. Well, let me back up a little bit from there. So
The Spaceman! Dark Alliance, the inside story of the Cosmic Time. Oh, excellent. Just excellent. Are you still there, John?
Here, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I think everybody should go take a look at that film, the docuseries. It's only $1 an episode. These guys, Darcy Weir said in that tweet thread that he's been working on and researching this story for 4 years and he's not done yet. So, wow, you know? And I've had to keep my mouth shut about this thing for like a long time. Now I could talk about it. Kevin Alt says this is like an episode of American Greed. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I am glad that those guys finally released even these 2 episodes. Where do we find the docuseries? It's on Amazon.com, and I'm going to put the link into the live chat right now for the benefit of anybody that wants to check it out. We'll be doing a full sort of review and show talking about the first 2 episodes. I think I'm just going to do them together. I've taken notes. Link to docuseries.
Oh, you know what, Stephen? You know what we forgot to talk about tonight?
What's
We
that?
forgot to talk about that 500-page DoD report that I posted on X about the environmental conditions at Stavati's property.
Oh, good point.
We forgot to mention that according to this report, Stavati's property was a landfill before it was an army base.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what are the implications of that, John?
Well, I should point out that in this DoD report, they're only about maybe 97, 98% sure it was a landfill. There's actually some inconsistencies and discrepancies with the research that the report writers did, and they're not entirely sure it was a landfill. And their recommendation is to do some serious digging and excavation to actually properly establish if it was a landfill.
Wow.
But, you know, I also have to say, their property is right next to Cayuga Creek, and their property is 1.3 miles from Love Canal. Do you know what Love Canal is, Stephen?
Yes, it's one of the most polluted sites in America.
Yeah, it's probably the worst environmental disaster to ever happen. Basically,
yeah, they were basically just burying barrels of chemicals for years, and then they built a neighborhood on top of it. There's a whole documentary about that on Netflix.
There's a bunch of documentaries about it. But Stephen, Love Canal is also near Cayuga Creek. So these 2 properties, they're 1.3 miles from each other, and they're connected by this creek. And the DoD environmental report states that for decades they worked on Nike missiles and maintained Nike missiles in that hangar, and there was runoff into the creek, and they have no idea what the contamination is. So part of the report basically says we need to do some serious sampling in and around Cayuga Creek. I mean, there's spilled PCBs. There was underground storage tanks.
Oh my God!
And those storage tanks, some of them or all of them were removed. And there are notes in the removal that during the removals there were oil spills. And actually, in one of the tanks, they cracked the thing and groundwater ran into the tank and mixed with the contents. And when they did samples afterward, there were hazardous substances that were way above New York legal limits. So I mean, it's over a 500-page report, and it's just, I mean, it goes through their asbestos, and you know, we could talk about that next time.
That's a lot. That's problematic for doing anything at the site. It may be too polluted to have people even work there, right? Who knows?
Well, I mean, the whole situation surrounding the spills, and also a transformer fell and leaked many gallons of PCB, although the report states that was cleaned to satisfaction. You know, there are questions regarding the environmental condition of this property, but I have to say, if it was a landfill, I mean, people have joked about, oh, Stavati's just storing trash in their hangar, and I think at the last show I remarked that that's actually not true. Their hangar is mostly empty.
Point of clarification: even in the theme song, we say their hangar's full of garbage, but that's a comedic parody. The truth is that the garbage dumpsters are outside of the hangar in the yard. sort of, and we've shown that.
That's
Just
correct.
to be fair, yeah.
But if it's a landfill, the garbage is not in the hangar, it's under the hangar.
Wow. Yeah. Great. And Spooky has shared the link in the live chat. I don't know why, but I was having trouble. So if anybody wants to go over there, there you go. And Rotary Motion, there is a mention of Jason Sands, who did the 20 and back in the docuseries. They mentioned that he saw Blue Chicken Aliens and did a 20 and back too. But his was different than Corey Goods, he said. So who knows? It's just one big clown show. But thank you, John, for coming here. And I rely on you because, you know, I could go digging up these court documents and I could go do all these things, but I feel like that's a waste of resources if there's somebody like you that's already doing it and doing such an excellent job digging every bit of information you can find. This is going to be a great book.
Yeah, and once again, it's a privilege to be here. If anyone, until we talk next time, if anyone wants Stavatti updates or just figuring out what breadcrumbs I'm dropping with my research, you can follow me on X, where, as I'm sure some people are aware, I'm always posting, interesting facts about Stavatti.
Yes, it's at JCSPAD, at JCSPAD.
That's correct.
At JCSPAD on X. Excellent. We look forward to your next appearance here. Go find some more shit, dirt.
I've already got some new sources and contacts lined up. So.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much for your help. I really appreciate it. You have a good evening. I'm going to do a quick wrap up and bounce on out of here myself. Thanks, John. You have a great night. Happy Halloween, buddy.
You the same.
All right, friends. We've made it through. For those unaware, those documents that we've shared this evening are always available on John's X at JCSPAD. He posts all the documents. So the difference between someone like John and us and David Wilcock is David Wilcock, all he has is talk and claims. We have the evidence, we have the proof, and we're willing to share it with you. And I'm really glad for finding John, because I was trying to make sense of some of this stuff and having a tough time. He's been doing it for a year and a half. And it's funny that David Wilcock says he only has one critic. Well, the Twitter proves that is a lie, David Wilcock. So, really at this point, I think David Wilcock has two choices. He can either wise up and realize that maybe he's being taken advantage of by these less than credible people who've been making false claims of grand technological advancements for decades and never producing anything. Or he could threaten me with lawsuits and getting me arrested because I'm telling people what I believe to be the truth, or the closest we can get to it based on available evidence. I don't believe that anything we do here is ethically, morally, or legally wrong. We simply want to get to the truth. And if David Wilcock's going to keep lying to people, I should be allowed constitutionally, with my rights to free speech and freedom of expression and freedom to make comedic parodies, I should be allowed to respond. He's a public figure. And, David Wilcock, look how good Corey suing some of his online critics turned out for him. What a lot of people don't realize when they throw around lawsuit threats is, first of all, if you sue somebody, you're giving them the ability to put you in a deposition chair for 8 hours and ask any questions they want, and you have to answer them. Secondly, you're giving them subpoena power. So, if you sue somebody, they can subpoena your email records, your financial records, your telephone records, communication records, all your records, really. That would be an extremely stupid move. And we've made some moves here. We've consulted with attorneys. We've consulted with media insurance companies. I've consulted with journalist organizations that provide free legal help and advice from people being threatened by those they cover. And let's be clear, too, there's very strong defenses in my state for journalists. First of all, there's a journalist shield law, meaning I never have to reveal my sources, ever. Even under subpoena or under oath, I could just refuse to name any of my sources. And then number two, there's a very strong anti-SLAPP law in Pennsylvania, which means I could just file a motion to dismiss under that state SLAPP law and get it dismissed almost immediately. But I understand David Wilcock is in a situation of desperation. He is desperate to get me to stop doing this, desperate to get me to shut up and just let him lie to people. And I'm not going to do that. He can try to intimidate me. I think the latest threats came just last week or the week before that. Of course, remember, 2 full months ago, he said that the lawsuit would be filed next week, just like the money's coming next week. It just never happens, right? Yeah, Jason Parker, good point. Jason Parker says ground penetrative radar should be able to confirm it was a landfill. Yeah, I agree. John's Twitter account, Amy Collins says, John's Twitter account is not open to view unless you have an account. I think that's, yeah, you got to have a Twitter account to look at his tweets, I guess. But yeah, YOY Fool says, funny show. Ty Blee says, awesome show. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, YOY Fools, right? Yeah. Craig Williams says, Corey did 320s and back, but so did Penny Bradley. Yeah, that lady's wild, right? How can there be such a thing as a sanitary landfill? Kevin Old says, Stavatti is a dumpster fire. Literally, there's dumpsters outside. There's dumpsters outside, friends. Well, I think we've done our due diligence. Not sure when I will be returning, but I have prepared several other shows, so maybe sometime this weekend. Pathfinder says, thank you, Stephen. Great show again. Yeah, and we want to take a moment to welcome our friends from Kino Casino. For those unaware, there's this crazy kick channel, and they're called Kino Casino. And these guys are wild. They like dress up in all these crazy costumes, and they just rip people on the internet to shit. And it is funny, really funny and fun. And anyway, they found me through a mutual viewer, a viewer of both their show and my show. And we've arranged for me to do a guest spot this coming Monday at 8:30 p.m. When I get the links for that, they'll be posted on my Twitter. So please follow me on Twitter at Stephen Cambion. And I got to thank those guys because they just played some of that alien interview with that John guy video of us ripping him apart. They just played some of that and talked about it and laughed about it. And I don't know, I'm up hundreds of subscribers since they did that. So thank those guys. Awesome show. I'm looking forward to appearing there. So, friends, I think we've done our due diligence. As for David Wilcock and his continuing threats, he can continue to threaten me, and I will continue to say that the purpose of my broadcast is not to threaten, intimidate, harass, tortuously interfere with someone's business. And by the way, if your business is lying to people and somebody can interfere with your business by telling people the truth, then you have greater problems than a lawsuit will fix. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it, right? Yeah, so friends, we've done our due diligence. I will be going to the cabin, I believe, tomorrow, but I may do a stream from there. I keep saying that, but then I get busy over there. I'm trying to finish off that porch before the big white stuff comes and ruins the rest of the winter, because the winter there is brutal and 6 months long. So you got to kind of finish whatever you can outside as quickly as you can before the snow comes. But maybe I'll have some time this weekend. And yeah, so that's all I got for you, friends. We want to thank you, all of our kind and generous benefactors. We want to thank you, Twitch subscribers, PayPal pledgers, Mike Larry, the awesome MVP of buying me a coffee, you PayPal pledgers, super chatter, super sticker, super thanks people, PayPal pledgers, everybody, YouTube channel members, Patreon supporters, anybody who's sending us any support. Thank you so much for your kindness, generosity, and support. It really does help. And you know what else helps and costs nothing? If you like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos. It really, really does make a difference. So I'd appreciate, if you haven't already, smash the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you'll know when we're doing these live broadcasts. Come be a part of this. Don't just watch the show, participate. We welcome all of you. And also, if you're listening in audio podcast land, we love and appreciate you, but you're missing half the fun. So go on over to YouTube, put Truth Seekers, one word in the search bar. I think the first search result that pops up will be this strange guy with sunglasses. go to the channel, smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you can be a part of our live tapings for the show. Yeah, I think we've covered it. And Pathfinder says, praise the cash, brother. Yeah, I got to get those bumpers going again. I'm missing the praise the cash bumpers, but we're still migrating to this new software. Hopefully, I'm slowly figuring it out, and I apologize for the technical problems. Hopefully, we'll get them all nailed down before the next broadcast. So thank you all for joining us. Thanks to our excellent guest, John Christian Spadavecchia. I'm getting better at saying that the more I have to. And you can follow him on Twitter at JCSPAD on Twitter. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook just by my name, Stephen Cambion. So that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you, especially you, David Wilcock. I hope that you realize that giving this company any more money is probably a bad idea. And, I'll pray for you that it works out and maybe someday you get all this money you dumped into this shady company back. But I'm not hopeful for your chances, Mr. Wilcock. And feel free to reach out to me if you'd like more information or clarity on some of the evidence we've presented tonight, or if you want to tell me your side of the story, we'd welcome that. So that's all I got for you, friends. Good night, and God bless all of you.